Chapter 1135. Xia Wang's departure. Jian Chen left the Divine Realm and returned to Divine City 100 kilometers away. Virtually the moment he stepped into the city, he heard many people discussing Lan Mo's death in the Divine Realm. Lan Mo had already been dead for over a month, but the news of his death had just reached the Divine City. This was why there was such a great hubbub over it. Almost everyone in the city was talking about it. The Lan Shan clan did not make an overwhelming response to his death. The entire clan was enveloped by deep sorrow and was currently holding a grand funeral for him. The experts of the 100-footed clan had only come out of the Divine Realm a few days ago. When they passed through the Lan Shan clan, they informed the patriarch of a few things that had happened. They told the patriarch that his son had died to an extremely powerful 16th star expert. Thus, the patriarch could not even consider revenge. Jian Chen's presence was finally no longer restrained now that he had left the Divine Realm. He immediately expanded it to envelope the entire city. He did not find Zhou Chuyu nor the others. He was not sure whether they had quietly left the city already, or that they had never returned from the Divine Realm. At this moment, Jian Chen's face changed. He drew back his presence and softly mumbled, "They really are here." With that, Jian Chen flew off before descending in front of a luxurious inn. At the same time, four closed windows suddenly opened. Four old men drifted out of their rooms and hovered in front of Jian Chen. "Yang Yutian, our miscalculations were why we couldn't pass through the second layer of formations, but the four of us still intend to try again in 100 years. I do hope you can come with us," Ada calmly said. He was not shocked at all by the fact that Jian Chen had made it out of there alive. Jian Chen shook his head and gently smiled. "I might not be going anywhere with you four in the future because there isn't anything I need from here now. I've come to find you this time because I want to give some things to you." With that, Jian Chen pulled out a big gourd from his space ring and tossed it to Ada. Ada caught the gourd and suspiciously glanced at Jian Chen. He was filled with curiosity and doubt, having no clue as to what was inside the gourd. However, he immediately jolted when he discovered what was in the gourd. He was filled with disbelief, and he involuntarily cried out, This. Yang Yuqian, why you actually made it in there?" The three other old men also became extremely curious when they saw their brother lose composure. They took the gourd from Ada and peeked into it, but they ended up exactly the same as Ada. Disbelief filled all their eyes. They originally thought that Jian Chen had fled using a secret technique just like them. Never did they think that Jian Chen had actually managed to get past so many beasts and arrive in the central region, shocking them greatly. "This is what you need, right?" Jian Chen stood with his arms crossed as he looked at them with a vague smile. The four of them all sucked in a deep breath and calmed down very quickly. One of them said, "Correct, these two items are extremely useful to us. It was also the reason why we wanted to enter there. Yang Yutian, the four of us owe you a favor." Jian Chen conversed a little more with four brothers before leaving Divine City. He returned to the Turtle Clan soon after that and asked about the current situation of the clan. "Ruler, with Senior Qing Yishuan present in our clan, we have strengthened by quite a lot. We have also attempted to take back a few crystal mines that are still in the possession of others, but we did not succeed at all. All the remaining large organizations have joined together, and they have connections with the Tao family. As soon as the experts of our clan are mobilized, they will gather the experts from several clans to defend." "There was nothing we could do," a Saint Ruler elder said on his knees. His voice was filled with helplessness and a sense of being wronged. Jian Chen frowned slightly. "This Tao family really is obstinate. Looks like they've already made up their minds to oppose us. Please take charge of the overall situation, ruler, and lead us gloriously," the elder courteously requested. After a momentary pause, Jian Chen said, "We'll let them enjoy themselves for now. I have even more important matters to attend to. They cannot be delayed. However, the end of the Tao family will come the next time I return." Jian Chen really did feel rather hurried inside. He had no idea exactly when the saint's fruit would ripen, so he needed to head over as soon as possible. Otherwise, he would lose a good opportunity to obtain it. This was because he had learned from the sea goddess that a vicious battle would erupt every single time the fruit appeared. When the time arrived, probably all 10 protector clans would take part in the fight for it. This was because no one would ever give up so easily on the only way to reach Saint Emperor. It possessed a fatal enticement to all people. "Jian Chen, if we don't move against the Tao family now, they'll become even more difficult to deal with in the future. We've received information recently that the Tao family is going to be united with another peak-level clan through marriage. Dealing with the two of them will be extremely difficult. Qing Yishuan walked in from outside and stared at Jian Chen. That's not a problem. Let them marry each other. Even if the marriage is a success, it won't be able to change anything, Jian Chen said at ease. He seemed to be very confident. Qing Yishuan frowned slightly, as if she disliked Jian Chen's arrogance. She said, "The Tao family belongs to the territory of the Sea Goddess Hall. I know your status in the Sea Goddess Hall is rather special, but the hall will not provide you with any support if you want to deal with the Tao family. I know you're very strong, but the Tao family is even stronger. They are no weaker than you. I really do wonder where your confidence comes from." Jian Chen began to laugh. He looked down at Qing Yishuan from the throne high up and said, "Qing Yishuan, you don't need to worry about this. I have my plans." Qing Yishuan could not stand Jian Chen's condescending attitude. She coldly snorted before leaving. At the same time she said, "There's something you should know. You're not the only one with a divine hall. The Tao family has one too." "A divine hall?" Jian Chen murmured as the light in his eyes flickered. He gently sighed inside before dismissing the elder that knelt below. He pulled out the saint artifact and let out Xie Wang, who had always been cultivating in it. After letting him out, he passed on a portion of divine water of the world and said, "Xie Wang, this was for the deal we made before. Take the divine water of the world, and from now on, you have recovered your freedom. You are no longer bound to me." Xie Wang behaved in a straightforward manner, taking the divine water without holding back. He said, "Although I can break through to the 15th star using the cultivation method of the Octaterra Emperor, it'll take quite a long time. It'll be different with the water. It can shorten the amount of time I need to break through. Jian Chen, I'll give you back the cultivation method. I owe you a huge favor, and I'll return it to you after I strengthen up." Xie Wang left, disappearing in the vast sea realm with the divine water he had obtained from Jian Chen. The environment there was more suitable for his cultivation. Chapter 1136. A gift. Jian Chen sat on the throne all by himself within the majestic hall. It was silent in there. Jian Chen sat there lazily. With a flip of his hand, a simple book appeared in it. It was covered with the marks of time, clearly having existed for quite some time already. It's a pity that only members of the sea race can practice the cultivation method of the Octaterra Emperor. Otherwise, I could have added another great cultivation method to the collections of the flame mercenaries. Jian Chen mumbled as he looked at the cultivation method. His voice was filled with pity. "Octaterra Emperor, I obtained your divine hall and I found a successor for you, so your cultivation method will not be lost. This can be counted as a form of compensation," Jian Chen murmured to himself. He did not let Xie Wang take the cultivation method away with him, but he believed that Xie Wang had already memorized the contents. The cultivation methods from the sea realm were unsuitable for humans and magical beasts. He had originally obtained a Tian-level Saint technique that was equivalent to the Saint-tier battle skills on the Tian-Yuan continent and the Octaterra Emperor's cultivation method from the Divine Hall. Newbies had taken the Tian-level Saint technique and wanted to modify it into his own battle skill. He was still working hard on it today. Jian Chen could only hand the cultivation method to Xie Wang. Only members of the sea race could practice it, and he knew very few people in the sea realm. Xie Wang was undoubtedly one of the best choices. It's a pity that the members of the Turtle Clan are limited by their original form. The cultivation methods that suit them the most are those that strengthen the body. The Octaterra Emperor's cultivation method is not suitable for them since they have better methods to use, Jian Chen mumbled. He did not want a cultivation method left behind by a Saint Emperor be forgotten just like this. He wanted to find even more outstanding successors for the cultivation method, and just Xie Wang by himself was not enough. Suddenly, Jian Chen's eyes lit up. He stood up from the throne and said, "I might be able to find someone who's suitable. Someone come." Jian Chen immediately summoned an elder of the Turtle Clan. After asking him about a few things, he departed from the Turtle Clan. There was a large tribe several 100,000 kilometers away from the Turtle Clan. There were several 100,000 people who lived there, and it was rumored to have a 15th star expert. It was renowned throughout the surrounding radius of several tens of thousand kilometers, and they held supreme power in that small region. The tribe was called the Kaler tribe. It was rumored that the founding expert shared the same name as the tribe, and those surnamed Kai were part of the leading family of the tribe. Several Earth Saint Master guards stood straight-backed under the leadership of a Heaven Saint Master outside. They silently guarded the main entrance of the tribe. At this moment, a streak of light flashed by. A person had shot over from the distance with extremely great speed, arriving there in just a few seconds. The person was so fast that the guards could not react. The person turned out to be a very handsome young man who seemed to be in his 20s and wore blue a robe. He had erased his presence and none of it leaked out, so he seemed just like an ordinary person. The guards outside the entrance all became surprised. The young man did not give off any presence, but just the speed he had traveled at was something that other ordinary experts could not match. Esteemed warrior, I, Xueqi, captain of the 2nd unit of the Kaler tribe, would like to express the most sincere welcome to you. Is there anywhere I can help you with? The Heaven Saint Master arrived before Jian Chen with his head lowered. He spoke politely. Is Kaya a member of your tribe? The young man asked nonchalantly. Esteemed warrior, Kaya is the young lady of our tribe, responded Xueqi. I want to see your young lady. Please pass on the message, said the Jian Chen. With that, Xueqi became slightly troubled. He carefully inquired, May I ask how you would like to be referred to? I'll pass on the message right now. The ruler of the Turtle Clan, replied Jian Chen. What? You're the ruler of the Turtle Clan? Xueqi paled in fright. He stared at Jian Chen in disbelief. Recently, the Turtle Clan had become extremely well known in the territory of the Sea Goddess Hall. It was rumored that an impressive ruler had appeared in the clan. He had first subdued the Taihong clan and then made the 3 disciplinary elders of the Heaven Spirit Hall submit to him. He caused the Turtle Clan's strength to skyrocket, allowing them to regain their former glory. Also, the Turtle Clan had been waging battles everywhere recently. They took over a lot of crystal mines using absolute power, forcing many large clans to work together with the Tao family just so they could contend with the Turtle Clan. It shook up the entire territory. Although very few people had seen the mysterious ruler of the Turtle Clan, he had already become an expert that had shaken up the entire sea realm. Xueqi never would have believed that the ordinary young man right before him was the legendary ruler of the Turtle Clan. Ruler, please wait. I'll go pass on the message immediately. Xueqi returned to his senses and responded with a trembling voice. Afterward, he ran inside as fast as he could. Jian Chen did not follow him and instead silently waited there. Otherwise, he probably would have caused quite a disturbance in the Kaler tribe. Kaya currently sat opposite of a middle-aged man with refined facial features in an extremely well-adorned room. They spoke freely. The middle-aged man was Kaya's father as well as the current patriarch of the Kaler tribe. He possessed a great status. At this moment, an old man hurried into the room. He hastily said, Patriarch, someone has reported that the ruler of the Turtle Clan has come to our tribe. He's currently at the main entrance. What? The ruler of the Turtle Clan? Elder Zhou, are you sure you've heard correctly? The patriarch immediately stood up as shock filled his face. Mentioning the mysterious ruler of the Turtle Clan, who had only appeared recently, was like thunder to his ears. It was reported by someone below. Patriarch, we better go check on whether it's true or not. Just in case it's true. Elder Zhou hurriedly replied. He was afraid that they would offend the ruler by making him wait too long. Why would the ruler of the Turtle Clan come to our Kaler tribe? The patriarch was filled with suspicion as he quickly walked away. The patriarch hurriedly arrived at the main entrance with a great group of elders behind him. They saw Jian Chen standing there in the distance, and Kaya, who was beside the patriarch, jerked. Her gaze was filled with astonishment as she subconsciously cried out, It's actually you, warrior. Kaya, do you recognize this person? Is he really the ruler of the Turtle Clan? The patriarch asked through a communication technique. Kaya did not respond since she did not know Jian Chen's true identity either. At this moment, the group of people from the Kaler tribe had arrived before Jian Chen. All of them curiously observed and examined him, but Jian Chen kept his presence hidden, so none of them could see his strength. The patriarch immediately clasped his hands. I am the patriarch of the Kaler tribe. May I ask how I may refer to you? I am the ruler of the Turtle Clan, Jian Chen. I've actually come this time primarily to find Miss Kaya, replied Jian Chen. After speaking, he waved his hand before anyone could say anything else. A mysterious power immediately wrapped around Kaya, and he flew away with her. The sudden actions caused everyone to become stunned. No one had thought that Jian Chen would actually take Kaiya away in such a straightforward fashion. However, Jian Chen was just too fast, so none of them could catch up even if they tried. So is he the ruler of the Turtle Clan or not? Why has he taken away Kaiya? The patriarch wondered aloud. He was filled with worry. One of the old men remained silent for a while before walking over from behind. He said, "Patriarch, I recognize this person. When Miss Kaiya and the others suffered in an ambush with me outside Jia City, he was the one who helped us and saved our lives. He shouldn't do anything detrimental to the young lady." Jian Chen stood with his arms crossed on a steep mountain peak 1,000 kilometers away from the Kaler tribe. He gazed at the vast expanse in front of him. Kaiya stood behind him as her dress and hair were buffeted by the wind. She stared at Jian Chen's back with her bright and intelligent eyes. She was strewn between emotions. "Sir, I never thought you would be the renowned ruler of the Turtle Clan," Kaiya said rather bitterly. She understood what the identity meant very well. She had never thought Jian Chen's background would actually be so impressive. Jian Chen did not have much to say now that he had met Kaiya again. The two of them had only met by chance originally. Jian Chen turned around and a book appeared in his hand. He said to her, "Miss Kaiya, this is the cultivation method of the Octoterra Emperor. It's a pity that it does not suit my clansmen, and I don't know many people in the sea realm either. You're probably one of the few I do know, so I want to gift this cultivation method to you. Are you willing to practice it? So you've come to find me this time just to give me this cultivation method?" Kaiya remained abnormally calm. She did not become shocked because of the cultivation method. Jian Chen nodded and said nothing else. Kaiya slowly extended her hand and accepted the cultivation method from Jian Chen. She gently said, "Thank you, ruler. Don't thank me, because this cultivation method is completely useless when it's with me, which is why I might as well give it to someone who needs it. Kaiya, I hope I will see a second Octoterra Emperor in the future," Jian Chen nonchalantly replied before disappearing into the distance as a streak of light. Kaiya held the cultivation method in her right hand. She stared deeply in the direction Jian Chen had vanished and only left after quite some time. She returned to the tribe. Soon after returning, Kaiya announced that she would go into a long period of secluded cultivation, causing quite the discussion among the members of the tribe. Chapter 1137. The Death Nest. Kaiya's sudden decision to go into seclusion interested her father very much. He had no idea what had happened to Kaiya after she had been taken by that person who called himself the ruler of the Turtle Clan. He was actually able to make Kaiya go into a long period of seclusion despite the fact that she rarely went into seclusion at all. Afterward, the patriarch of the Kaler clan immediately sent a few elders to visit the Turtle Clan several 100,000 kilometers away to verify whether Jian Chen was the ruler of the Turtle Clan or not. Around a dozen days later, the elders all returned from the Turtle Clan. They had verified that Jian Chen was the ruler of the Turtle Clan, allowing the patriarch of the Kaler clan to relax. At the same time, he was filled with even more doubt. He constantly wondered why the great ruler of the Turtle Clan would suddenly seek his own daughter, and he wondered what exactly happened after his daughter was taken away. Why had she gone into a long period of seclusion? The news that the ruler of the Turtle Clan had personally visited the Kaler clan spread like wildfire. Several surrounding large clans and organizations learned about it, which immediately led to quite a large disturbance among them. The status of the Turtle Clan had already skyrocketed in the sea realm. They were not as glorious as before, but they had truly become one of the peak organizations in the sea realm, so they obviously received the attention of countless people. The legendary ruler of the Turtle Clan was extremely unpredictable and mysterious in the eyes of the large organizations. Some well-informed clans had learned that he had once challenged the Serpent God Hall all by himself, forcing several hall elders to their wits' end. He then proceeded to the Heaven's Spirit Hall, and made them bow down before he had even begun fighting. The piece of news that the 3 disciplinary elders of the hall submitted to him had caused all of them to become tongue-tied. And now, many organizations began to suspect certain matters after hearing that the ruler had personally visited the Kaler clan. They searched about everywhere to figure out the connection the ruler had with the Kaler clan. Nonetheless, the Kaler clan's status in the sea realm greatly increased after what had happened this time. Afterward, Jian Chen called for the sea goddess. With her assistance, he met Huang Luan, who had been cultivating in a desolate region. Jian Chen had learned from the sea goddess that the secret technique planted in Huang Luan's head had already been removed by the hall master of the sea goddess hall, which gave Jian Chen relief. Huang Luan had stopped practicing the scripture of the aquatic sunflower and now used a cultivation method she had learned from the sea goddess. The cultivation method was of an even higher tier than the scripture of the aquatic sunflower, so it was even more suitable for her and her water spirit's body. Jian Chen stood afar and observed Huang Luan as she sat on the ground. He did not disturb her and stood there silently. He stood there for a whole hour before finally disappearing quietly. Up above the sea realm, there was the sunny sky. The scorching sun illuminated the world with light, scorching the ground like an oven. Waves of heat radiated out. The sea surface far away from any shore was calm, like a blue mirror. It connected to the sky on the horizon. At this moment, the calm sea surface was broken. It suddenly began to ripple, quickly expanding in all directions. Gradually, the rippling increased and turned into a fountain very soon, as if something was floating up to the surface. Finally, with a huge splash, a huge column of water shot into the air. A figure took to the sky from the water, moving extremely fast. He reached an altitude of several thousand meters instantly, becoming an ant-like speck in the sky. Jian Chen hovered in the air above the sea. With a flip of his hand, a pure white thumb-sized piece of jade appeared. Under a slight tightening of his grip, the jade turned to power. A few seconds later, the space in front of Jian Chen began to violently ripple. Finally, it shattered like a mirror and a small, burly giant emerged silently from the shattered space, shining with a golden light. The light seemed to contain some mysterious power, preventing the shattered space from closing up even after quite some time. At the same time, chaotic spatial streams wreaked havoc in the shattered space. If anyone fell into it, they would become quite injured. Yet the figure stood within the storm like it was nothing. The golden light around him seemed to isolate him in a different world, where the spatial streams could not approach him. At this moment, the golden figure took a step away from the shattered space. The golden light also began to fade, and without any more obstructions, the shattered space finally began to slowly close up. Jian Chen, you've finally come back from the sea realm. You've been gone for 2 months already. If you still didn't come out, I would have come looking for you personally. The burly giant flew over as he chuckled at Jian Chen. He was Tai Ta. Although he did not comprehend the mysteries of the world, he was a war god. The mysteries techniques he knew were powerful and wondrous, incomparable to the mysteries of the world. They were not the mysteries of the world, they exceeded them. Tai Ta, you've become stronger and stronger. Jian Chen sighed emotionally as he observed Tai Ta. Tai Ta's natural advantage was just far too powerful. He was blessed by the world and the world passed on abilities to him. He had no need to go through any systematic learning to grasp these many wondrous and powerful secret techniques, and he would just possess mastery over them. Everyone would be envious of him if they knew this. Tai Ta smiled honestly and scratched his head. He seemed rather proud but amazed and helpless at the same time. He said, Jian Chen, don't praise me. My strength may be much greater now, but I still feel like I can't beat you. Back in Kargath Academy, there wasn't such a great difference between our strength, but no matter how powerful I became, I could never surpass you. Jian Chen smiled with that. Tai Ta, let's go to the death nest first. I've wasted over 2 months already, so we can't delay this any further. Jian Chen invited Heiyu out of the artifact space and got him to construct a space gate for them. Afterward, he left through it with Tai Ta. On the Three Saint Mountain of Three Saint Island, the heavenly enchantress sat with her legs crossed on a huge rock by a cliff. Her figure was beautiful and her white dress seemed even paler than snow. She seemed like an otherworldly goddess. The simple zither of the demonic cry was placed on her legs. Her thin fingers slowly danced about the strings, playing beautiful tunes. It was extremely pleasant, enough to unknowingly intoxicate people in such a way that they could not resist. The strings of the zither slowly trembled. The beautiful music lacked happiness and joy. It was inflexible, becoming rather sorrowful and heavy. The heavenly enchantress frowned slightly. She removed the veil on her face and revealed her indescribably pretty appearance. However, some worry and helplessness was present as well. A white, chubby boy, who only seemed to be 3 or 4, currently tried to climb up the rock arduously behind her. His eyes were filled with unyielding determination. Chapter 1138. Xiaobao the white, chubby boy pressed his body against the huge rock. He stood on the slight protrusions of the rock, and he was over 10 meters from the group. It was very difficult to imagine that a child at such an age could climb so high through his own hard work. At this moment, the boy slipped. He immediately began to fall from the rock. He was clearly frightened, subconsciously calling out, "Mom!" Before the boy could finish speaking, a white figure had appeared beside him almost instantaneously. She extended a hand to catch him, saving him from danger. The white figure that had suddenly appeared was the heavenly enchantress. However, the zither of the demonic cry had now disappeared from her hands, even though it almost never left her side, now replaced by the boy. The heavenly enchantress cradled the boy in her arms. She looked at him with mixed emotions along with an unhideable fondness. "Xiaobao, you're not listening again. Have you forgotten what I've said to you?" The heavenly enchantress chided as she sternly stared at the boy. The boy was extremely active and mischievous. He did not seem to fear the heavenly enchantress at all. He extended his chubby, dusty arms to grab the heavenly enchantress' neck. He said, "Mom, Xiaobao has been very good. Xiaobao is only thinking of Mom and wants to spend time with Mom." With that, the boy stared at the heaven enchantress in vivid interest with his bright eyes and seriously said, "Xiaobao knows you've been very sad. Don't be sad anymore, okay?" A rare gentleness appeared on the heavenly enchantress' face. She gently rubbed Xiaobao's head, but she produced a deep sigh inside. She was filled with bitterness. At this moment, 3 figures flew over from afar. They stopped near the heavenly enchantress in the end, and these figures were Qin Qin, Xiao Qian, and Xiao Yu. Qin Qin's disposition had undergone a very great change from a few years ago. She now possessed an additional feeling of refinement, as if she had broken free from mortal affairs. Qin Qin had already sensed the heavenly melody with the assistance of the heavenly enchantress and embarked on a unique path of cultivation. However, just a few years was not enough for her strength to increase too much. She was only equal to Earth Saint Masters, so she needed Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu's help to fly. Mom, look. The 3 sisters have come." Xiaobao immediately squealed out in excitement from the heavenly enchantress' bosom. He broke free from her hold and happily ran to the 3 of them. "Sister Huggy." Xiaobao opened up his arms in front of Qin Qin. Qin Qin fondly lifted up Xiaobao while Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu gathered over as well. They played around with Xiaobao as they laughed, and their gazes for the boy were filled with fondness and love. Xiaobao's status on 3 Saint Island was extremely special. In a certain place on the Tianyuan continent, an extremely huge formation covered a pitch-black forest. The forest was shrouded by black mist, which surged about like dragons. The mist seemed like vicious and terrifying ghosts that were brandishing their teeth and claws from time to time, which was chilling. All the vegetation in the forest only had 2 colors, red and black. The black trees were hidden in the surging black mist, seeming like huge ghosts from afar. The blood-red plants radiated a demonic light, as if they were covered with blood. The ground was scarlet as well, like dried blood. The forest enveloped by the formation was the most dangerous place on the Tianyuan continent, the Death Nest. The Death Nest was single-handedly created by the strongest human, Mo Tianyun, many years ago. Countless experts had fallen in the war between the 3 races in ancient times, and Mo Tianyun used his great abilities to move and bury all their corpses in one location. Regardless of saint emperors, saint kings, or saint rulers, they were all buried in the current location, the Death Nest. The Death Nest was the grave of many saint emperors among the 3 races. The ground had been dyed red by the blood of saint emperors, so it remained scarlet even after countless years. Even the plants that grew there became demonically red. The ground in a radius of 10,000 kilometers was withered and barren. Nothing grew and it was desolate, having been affected by the Death Nest. The region was unsuitable for habitation, and even the sky had become heavy. Even with a scorching sun in the middle of the sky, it was gloomy. None of the sunlight could reach there, making it rather cold in fact. Chapter 1139, Vengeful Spirits of the Death Nest, 1. Even though many heavenly resources grew in the Death Nest, no one went there to collect them. Its infamy completely deterred Heaven Saint Masters who were the peak-level experts of smaller kingdoms. Probably only saint rulers possessed the ability to protect themselves, but that was in the very outskirts. They needed to be careful as well and not go too far in. There was a rumor on the Tianyuan continent that all the plants that grew within the death nest possessed very powerful yin qi and grudges that could not be purged. If they were ingested by people, there would be no benefits at all and would instead lead to endless detrimental effects. As a result, there were extremely few people who entered the death nest since ancient times. A few powerful saint kings would enter from time to time and seek treasures that had been lost since ancient times. Suddenly, the space several hundred meters above the death nest began to violently distort. A space gate slower formed and the robed Jian Chen, the bare-chested Tai Ta, and the black-robed He Yu stepped out. The three of them hovered at an altitude of several hundred meters as they curiously observed their surroundings. Soon afterward, the three of them frowned. A seriousness filled their faces, as well as a little bit of surprise. The death nest really is worthy of being called the greatest zone of danger on the Tianyuan continent. We still haven't even entered it, yet it's already pressuring me psychologically, Jian Chen said. Tai Ta's eyes shone as he constantly observed the surrounding area. He would look at the sky sometimes and then look at the forest of death enveloped by a huge formation at other times. He said, "This place is so evil. I seem to be able to feel the wailing of countless souls. No, that's not it. It feels like faces of ghosts are appearing and brandishing their jaws and claws at us. Those are all vicious ghosts. Jian Chen, this place is frightening." As a war god, Tai Ta's senses were greater than Jian Chen, so he sensed it all much clearer. Mo Tianyun sure has done a lot to create such an evil place. Just why did he do this? Was it to raise the saint's fruit? Is it really worth it to use the corpses of countless experts just for a piece of fruit? He Yu murmured. He was unsettled. He finally understood the terror of this place after personally witnessing it himself. The yin qi and presence of grudges here have reached a terrifyingly powerful level. It can shroud the sun and moon, affecting the surroundings as well. Just why did Mo Tianyun do this? Is this an ability that has surpassed Saint Emperor? And I can actually feel a heart-shaking power in the formation. This formation definitely can withstand attacks from Saint Emperors easily. Probably only those who have surpassed Saint Emperor can break through it, He Yu said gruffly. The three of them remained outside for a while. Afterward, Jian Chen said, "Tai Ta, Senior He Yu, let's go in and check out these vengeful spirits. Let's see just how frightening they are." Jian Chen traveled toward the huge formation with Tai Ta and He Yu. The formation around the death nest only seemed to exist to trap the beings inside. It could not stop the entry out outsiders. As a result, the three of them smoothly passed through and entered the death nest. As soon as they stepped in, they felt cold. Yin qi that was several times denser flooded them, making them feel like they had stepped into a cavern of ice instead. What powerful yin qi! This yin qi is enough to claim the lives of Earth Saint Masters instantaneously. Even Heaven Saint Masters won't dare to stick around for too long, exclaimed Jian Chen. Currently, the three of them were at the edge of the forest. The black mist in the forest surged and churned unceasingly. The ground was scarlet, making it seem like demonic blood, but it was filled with malevolence. It was sunny outside, yet everything became gloomy inside the death nest. Visibility was minimal. In the forest, red and black mixed together. Countless ancient trees and dense grass swayed in the wind, making them seem like ghosts moving about. Coupled with the wild wind, ghosts seemed to be wailing, which was chilling. The three of them were especially cautious as this was the first time they had ever come across such a hellish place. Even though they were powerful, unknown dangers lurked right before them, so they dared not to be careless. Jian Chen attempted to expand his presence, but as soon as it left his body, an abnormally icy presence invaded his soul. It made him feel a stabbing pain in his soul, where even he became rather dizzy. Jian Chen immediately drew back his presence and was no longer willing to use it anymore. His presence was wondrous, but it was not all-powerful. It would be suppressed in some special environments. The three of them walked through the gloomy forest as the mist constantly churned. It radiated waves of cold, as if countless claws of ghosts were touching them all over. It was hair-raising, and they became covered in goosebumps. At this moment, strands of iciness emerged from the mist and clung to Jian Chen's skin before entering his body. Jian Chen sensed it, but he did nothing to resist it. Instead, he relaxed and allowed the iciness to enter his body. At the same time, a weak ripple of energy appeared beside him. He Yu and Tai Ta had come across a similar situation as Jian Chen. They started circulating their much more powerful energy to erase the invading iciness. The iciness had entered Jian Chen's flesh and blood. It wormed into Jian Chen's organs before beginning to devour all vitality present in his body. He immediately felt his vitality leak away bit by bit through the iciness that had entered him. Looks like this iciness contains these properties. It can invade the body and devour vitality. One of Ming Dong's great-grandfathers had entered the death nest with Senior Tian Jian in the past, and Ming Dong's great-grandfather passed away because he was struck with a curse from the death nest. Was it this iciness? Jian Chen thought inside. With a single thought, he yanked back all his vitality that was leaking away. Afterward, with a small tremble, he used his powerful body to shatter the iciness within him. The three of them continued on their way. They came across quite a few heavenly resources, but it was a pity that all the resources had been contaminated by Yin Qi. They could not be ingested, so they were just a waste. The three of them traveled a few more kilometers. Suddenly, a huge ghost's face surged out of the black mist, biting at the three of them with its enormous mouth. Jian Chen, Tai Ta, and He Yu did nothing. They had just come in here, so they had no idea about the dangers. They wanted to use a weak existence like this to test their strength. Then they could find the best way to deal with similar dangers in the future. The ghost face was completely formed from grudges. It had naturally formed because of the endless amounts of grudges present, and it was equivalent to a heaven saint master. Biting down, the ghost face devoured the three of them. They felt their vision darken. They had plunged into pure darkness in that moment. An even icier presence wormed its way into their bodies, where even their souls were invaded by the grudges. After understanding that the ghost face possessed offensive capabilities, they easily dispersed it, causing it to turn back into a black mist that drifted away. Chapter 1140. Vengeful Spirits of the Death Nest. 2. The presence of grudges filled the death nest. Black mist surged as cold wind blew, making the vegetation their sway with the wind. The wind sounded like the wails of ghosts. The death nest was split into 3 zones. The first zone was enough to threaten saint rulers, and the vengeful spirits that appeared there were mostly at the level of saint rulers. Saint King vengeful spirits would appear there rarely as well. It would spell almost certain doom for any heaven saint masters that entered the area, since even saint rulers had the chance of dying. The second zone was where Saint King vengeful spirits gather, with a very small chance for Saint Emperor vengeful spirits to appear. Only Saint Kings could move freely there. The third zone was the most terrifying place of the death nest, as it was where Saint Emperor corpses were buried. It was the lair of Saint Emperor vengeful spirits and was extremely terrifying. Even Saint Kings at great perfection needed to be very careful in that zone. The Saint Emperor vengeful spirits were born from the grudges of the dead. They had lost their abilities from when they were still alive long ago, but they were still quite difficult to deal with. They were extremely powerful. Jian Chen, Tai Ta, and He Yu moved through the death nest, proceeding to the depths. They encountered attacks from many ghost faces, and the iciness that had invaded their bodies earlier appeared very often as well. However, it could not stop their advance. After traveling several dozen kilometers, a blurry figure condensed from black mist appeared several hundred meters away from them. It sat on the ground, inhaling and exhaling the presence of the grudges into the surroundings. It absorbed the essence from the ground to cultivate. All of this essence originated from the ground that had been dyed by the blood of countless saint emperors. The three of them stopped and stared at the vengeful spirit a few hundred meters away. After a period of close observation, Tai Ta said, "That vengeful spirit's already at Saint King. I never thought we'd come across such a powerful vengeful spirit so quickly in the first zone. If other saint rulers came across this vengeful spirit, it would be very difficult for them to survive. It seems to be cultivating. That's unbelievable. These vengeful spirits condensed from the grudges of the dead can actually cultivate. Do they already possess a conscience?" Jian Chen sighed in amazement. He found it rather unbelievable. Afterward, Jian Chen used the illusory flash and shot toward the Saint King vengeful spirit several hundred meters away. At the same time, the vengeful spirit discovered Jian Chen and suddenly stood up. It was entirely condensed from black mist and the endless grudges of the dead, so it was rather ethereal and not really tangible. The appearance of the vengeful spirit was blurry. It seemed like a person, but it lacked facial features. It turned its head to look in Jian Chen's direction before floating toward him in the form of a black mist. It moved extremely quick. Although the vengeful spirit possessed the strength of Saint Kings, it was nowhere near as powerful as an actual Saint King. Jian Chen began fighting the vengeful spirit while studying it at the same time. A while later, Jian Chen finally confirmed that the vengeful spirit lacked self-awareness. Cultivation was instinctual to it, so Jian Chen breathed out in relief. If the vengeful spirits possessed were self-aware, they would be far too terrifying. After all, there were many Saint Emperor vengeful spirits in the third zone. Jian Chen chopped through the vengeful spirit with a single stroke of the Emperor armament, reducing it to black mist. However, it recondensed the next moment and continued to fight Jian Chen. The suffocating iciness and the endless amount of grudges formed a very terrifying attack. The iciness invaded Jian Chen's body in attempt to devour his vitality while the grudges charged at Jian Chen's soul. However, Jian Chen remained unaffected by both. The vengeful spirits were extremely difficult to kill. They were condensed from an endless amount of grudges and were not living like humans, nor did they possess the weakness of a soul. Without any exaggeration, they could be described as invincible. The only method to deal with them was to constantly attack them to exhaust their energy. Once their energy was completely consumed, they would be reduced to nothing more than a part of the black mist. With an emotionless glare, Jian Chen attacked the vengeful spirit time and time again with his Emperor armament. Only after killing it more than 10 times did all of its power disappear, turning back into a surging black mist. Jian Chen, the power you use is nothing ordinary. If you use your power against these vengeful spirits, it will quicken their deaths. It would be very difficult for other Saint Kings to use less time to deal with one if they came across a vengeful spirit, He Yu said. He stood with arms crossed next to Tai Ta. Jian Chen seemed to be in thought. He then put the Emperor armament away. He continued on his way with He Yu and Tai Ta. There were extremely few Saint King vengeful spirits in the first zone of the Death Nest. Most of them were at the level of Saint Rulers, so they did not come across any more Saint King vengeful spirits during the following journey. After traveling several thousand kilometers, they finally passed through the first zone of the Death Nest and reached the second. The iciness and presence of grudges that pervaded the second zone were 10 times greater than the first. The iciness ate away at the body while the grudges invaded the soul. It forced the three of them to circulate their energy to resist them. Jian Chen had already fused a small part of chaotic force into his body, relying on the terrifying defense of the chaotic body. A faint layer of golden light appeared around Tai Ta. It isolated him from the iciness and grudges of the dead. Even He Yu began to use his own power to resist the two. The three of them became rather surprised when they had first arrived in the second zone. Just the yin qi and grudges were enough for Saint Kings to treat them seriously. They sighed emotionally at the terror of the Death Nest again. A few bones and shrapnel of weapons began appearing in the second zone. The bones were littered with the marks of time, clearly having existed for countless years already. The pieces of weapons had been created from extremely valuable materials, but they had already been contaminated by the yin qi and the grudges, so they now bore a malicious nature. They could not be used. These are bones of a member of the Dragon Clan, He Yu suddenly said as he stared at a bone the size of a human. His voice was filled with shock. Jian Chen and Tai Ta glanced over when they heard that. The unknown piece of bone was dark red in color, as if it had been dyed by blood. The Dragon Clan disappeared in ancient times. It's already been 1,000,000 years since, so this bone was clearly left behind before the Dragon Clan had vanished. It's been so long already, so it should have turned to dust long ago. How can it still exist and be in such a perfect condition? He Yu gruffly said as disbelief flooded his face. The bone is filled with yin qi and grudges. Is it these two energies that prevent the bone from decaying, which is why it's still perfect after at least 1,000,000 years? Jian Chen guessed. He Yu thought attentively and said, that should be the case. Doesn't that mean there are many bones left behind from the ancient times in the Death Nest then? The three of them continued on their way. They discovered many bones and more pieces of weapons as they traveled. There was no lack of bones from the Dragon and Phoenix clans, which were recognized at a glance by He Yu. They had even found a space ring buried in the soil that had not been completely destroyed. Items could still be removed from within. However, nothing in it caught Jian Chen's eye. Chapter 1141. Saint Emperor. The dangers in the second zone were much greater than the first. All the roaming vengeful spirits possessed the strength of Saint Kings. The weakest were at the first heavenly layer while the more powerful ones were at great perfection. The vengeful spirits at the level of Saint Kings basically all cultivated instinctively. They absorbed the grudges of the dead and the essence from the soul. Although they lacked self-awareness, their strength was indisputable. The three of them boldly walked through the second zone, traveling straight to the depths of the death nest. All the vengeful spirits they came across were handled by Jian Chen. His chaotic force was much more effective at dealing with the vengeful spirits than Saint Force. It could make the vengeful spirits disperse faster, so he was even faster at killing them than Yu. This was not because Yu was weaker than Jian Chen. He was a Saint King at great perfection, but the energy within him was on the same level as Saint Force. It lacked the special effects of chaotic force. In the messy forest, Jian Chen slowly pulled back his emperor armament after dealing with a vengeful spirit. This was the 16th vengeful spirit at the level of a Saint King he had killed in the second zone. But at this very moment, an icy wind blew over and 6 figures slowly appeared in the dense mist several thousand meters ahead. They fused with the mist as they gently drifted over, controlling the mist to head toward the three of them. There's actually another 6. Jian Chen's eyes narrowed. He suddenly tightened his grasp on his emperor armament. Just when he wanted to charge up and fight the 6 of them, a golden light flashed past his side. Tai Ta, completely shrouded by golden light, had already begun charging toward the 6 vengeful spirits. At the same time he said with his deep muffled voice, "Jian Chen, take a rest. Let me deal with them. I can do it." With that, Jian Chen nodded slightly and did not charge up. He remained where he was, watching the battle between the vengeful spirits and Tai Ta. Tai Ta was no longer the weakling from before. After absorbing the droplet of Ergin's essence blood, he now possessed the strength to rival Saint Kings and was ranked near the top among Saint Kings. A golden axe appeared in Tai Ta's hand. Wielding it with both hands, he called out, "Mysteries of war, destruction." With that, the golden light around him grew brighter, enveloping him in a blinding light. At the same time, a supreme battle intent filled the surroundings, actually blowing away the endless amounts of yin qi and grudges of the dead that filled the area. Tai Ta's presence was elevated to the limit. He seemed to become a god of war in that moment, an invincible god that lived for war. Suddenly, the axe in Tai Ta's hands turned into a devastating golden light, sweeping toward the 6 vengeful spirits. His heart violently trembled. He felt like the existence before him was undefeatable. Tai Ta arrived in front of Jian Chen and sternly stared at the figure. However, his eyes lit up very soon, and he cried out, "It's Gusties." "He's Gusties." "What Gusties?" Jian Chen gruffly asked. He was filled with doubt. Tai Ta immediately became rather emotional. He said, "I've obtained a portion of Senior Ergin's memories. Gusties was the ruler of the berserkers among the 100 races. He was extremely powerful and had reached the peak of Saint Emperor. He was known as the most powerful Saint Emperor in his age, and only those beyond Saint Emperor could keep him at bay. During those years, he followed Senior Ergens to war everywhere, but he died to the hands of multiple Class 9 magical beasts in the end." Chapter 1142. Yu fights Gusties. After learning about the identity of the vengeful spirit before death, Jian Chen and Yu immediately became extremely stern. The burly and tangible vengeful spirit actually possessed such a great background. He was known as the strongest Saint Emperor, so his strength was indisputable. Even though he had been reduced to a vengeful spirit now, he was probably a very powerful vengeful spirit. Tai Ta clearly had not realized that danger was close. He stared at Gusties and out of slight excitement said, "Senior Gusties, do you still remember the past?" "Tai Ta, he is no longer the strongest Saint Emperor of the past. He's only a vengeful spirit condensed from the grudges of the dead," Jian Chen heavily explained. Tai Ta quickly calmed down. He stared blankly at Gusties. He knew extremely well that he had come from the death nest and that the Gusties right in front of him was no longer the strongest Saint Emperor in Ergin's memories. He was now a vengeful spirit. Gusties stood there silently. His face was expressionless and cool. He did not respond at all to what Tai Ta had said, as if he could not hear Tai Ta at all. Suddenly, Gusties moved. He used a very brutal attack, hurling a punch at Yu. The fist seemed extremely simple and straightforward, but the single fist could make mountains collapse, the ground crack, and the world darken. The surrounding black mist field was affected by Gusty's punch. It began to violently tremble, as if dragons were dancing within them. His attack was different from normal vengeful spirits. He seemed to possess some of his abilities from his former life, so the simple punch possessed a terrifying might. "Back off!" Heiyu yelled. He became extremely stern. He felt that his battle against the vengeful spirit would be much more difficult than with the human and magical beast Saint Emperors he had faced before. After all, Gustis was just far too strong when he was alive. In ancient times, a place that teemed with Saint Emperors, he had the power to surpass all and be crowned as the strongest. At the same time, Heiyu instantly punched out as well. Heiyu dared not to hold anything back against such a powerful vengeful spirit. He used everything he had of his great perfection Saint King's strength. Heiyu's original form was a mutated divine alligator. He was comparable to beasts of antiquity, and beasts of antiquity were far stronger than regular magical beasts. Regular magical beasts were also tougher than other experts of the same level of cultivation, so Heiyu's punch was much more powerful than a punch from regular Saint Kings at great perfection. Bang! The two fists collided and produced a muffled sound. A violent ripple of energy expanded in all directions with their fists as the epicenter, kicking soil into the air and causing the ground to crack. All the mist in the surrounding area was blown clean away by the energy, revealing unconcealed land. Jian Chen and Tai Ta trembled violently. They struggled to stand firm even with their strength as the violent ripple of energy swept by. Jian Chen was shocked inside. He had seen quite a few Saint Kings at great perfection. The great elder of the Yuan sect, Yangzi, who had once attacked him was a Saint King at great perfection. However, a large difference existed between him and Heiyu. Yet, Heiyu was actually blown away by Gusty's punch. A rock several hundred meters away shattered while Gusty stood firm like a mountain. He remained where he was. Jian Chen was astounded. Gusty's strength was so great that he could be described as a deviant. He found it rather difficult to believe that Heiyu had actually been blown away so easily. Jian Chen knew that Gustis was extremely powerful when he was still alive, but he was only a vengeful spirit now. He was no longer as great as before, so it was shocking for him to still possess such terrifying strength. Saint Kings are definitely not his opponent. Even great perfection is not enough. Only other Saint Emperors can rival Gustis, Jian Chen quickly concluded inside. Heiyu roared at the sky and shot over as a black streak of light. He was in a horrible condition, but his presence was strong and his battle intent was even greater. There was no fear on his face, only elated spirits and a will to fight. An extremely vast energy rippled out. It was extremely terrifying, and with its appearance, all the yin qi and grudges within the death nest became rather calm. The dense black mist around Heiyu was quickly forced away. A shiny machete appeared in Heiyu's hand. He wielded it with one hand as he began fighting with Gustis. Swinging it heavily, each stroke possessed the force to conquer mountains. This was a weapon with origin energy. Heiyu seemed to have become a true Saint Emperor now that he was wielding the machete. He fought Gustis in a head-on battle. When he swung his machete, it would knock away Gustis' earth-shaking punches before continuing toward Gustis without weakening in form, cleaving Gustis in half. Gustis was no longer as powerful as before while facing an origin energy weapon. Origin energy was a powerful energy that belonged to a whole different domain. It could not be compared to any energy of this world, so even true Saint Emperors dared not to accept attacks that were laced with this energy, let alone Gustis who was condensed from the grudges of the dead. Gustis' body healed instantly. He seemed like he had never been injured in the first place, and he hurled another punch. The punch broke through the surroundings, causing space to shatter and fall into darkness as it moved. With the machete in his hand, Heiyu firmly swung it. There were no tricks. It was a simple and straightforward attack, striking Gustis' fist. Gustis had become very weak before the origin energy weapon. Boom! Suddenly, Gustis' huge figure erupted and turned into a ball of extremely dense mist. The dense mist surged toward Heiyu before completely enveloping him. At the same time, yin qi and grudges that were powerful enough to make Heiyu's expression change invaded his body. The yin qi was so dense that the layer of energy outside him could not obstruct it, so it quickly entered his body. It began to devour all the vitality within him. At the same time, the pure grudges attacked his soul, causing a stabbing pain to appear in Heiyu's soul. Yu bellowed out and his origin energy armor immediately appeared. It completely isolated him from the invading Yin Qi, and a thumb-sized pearl also appeared above his head. It radiated with a light that enveloped Yu, protecting his soul. Yu was no longer in an inferior position now that the three treasures had finally appeared. He was completely unaffected. Without any consideration for the consequences, Yu began to attack as hard as he could. He swung the machete in his hand at the dense black mist as it glowed with a white light, and every blade of light that flickered past would cause the mist to disperse slightly. The black mist around Yu began to churn violently once it realized how it was no longer affecting him. It recondensed into Gusty's form in the distance. Yu angrily roared out. He charged threateningly toward Gustis with his 3 origin energy treasures. This time, Gustis did not bother with Yu anymore. With a slight tremble, he turned into a black figure that disappeared off into the distance. He had left. Yu did not pursue. He stared deeply in the direction Gustis had vanished while a seriousness leaked from his gaze. A while later, his 3 treasures all vanished, having been put away. Senior Yu, are you fine? Jian Chen and Tai Ta immediately walked over from afar. They asked in concern. Yu gently shook his head and said, "It's fortunate that I had my 3 origin energy treasures. Otherwise, I definitely wouldn't have been his opponent. Probably only Rue Jin with the secret techniques of the Dragon Clan could rival him. That vengeful spirit is just too strong. No wonder he was named as the strongest Saint Emperor in the past." The 3 of them all fell silent. Even using his 3 origin energy treasures, Yu could not collapse Gusty's vengeful spirit, and it had still managed to flee in the end. The vengeful spirit's strength had reached an unbelievable level. It was enough to threaten Saint Kings at great perfection. Just how many people were its opponent in the current world? Jian Chen said after some silence, "Senior, there shouldn't be many vengeful spirits that are as powerful as Gustis. I don't think the other Saint Emperor vengeful spirits are that powerful." Chapter 1143. An unexpected gain. I hope that's the case. If there are many vengeful spirits as powerful as Gustis, we'd probably only be able to protect ourselves after Rue Jin, Hong Lian, and I work together, Yu gruffly said. He felt slightly pressured by Gustis' appearance. The 3 of them continued, directly making their way to the 3rd zone of the Death Nest. They were attacked by many vengeful spirits as they moved, and all of them were Saint Kings. Saint Emperor vengeful spirits were extremely rare. They did not come across a second one. The 3 of them would come across a few bones that originated from ancient times, but the bones had been invaded by the Yin Qi and grudges of the dead long ago, explaining why they remained in perfect condition. After traveling over 1,000 kilometers through the 2nd zone, the 3 of them finally reached the border. They saw that the Yin Qi, a few thousand meters ahead of them, was thick and dense like a black mist as it rolled about violently. Ghost faces seemed to be conjured from time to time and seemed to be brandishing their teeth and claws at Jian Chen. They would produce dreadful wails as well. This was the depths of the Death Nest, the 3rd zone, the most dangerous zone. It was known as the homeland of Saint Emperor vengeful spirits since this was where they gathered. The 3 of them stopped at the border between the 2 zones. They stared at the 3rd zone sternly, but they did not step over the boundary. They became rather conflicted inside. Just the Yin Qi and grudges that filled the 3rd zone were enough to pressure them. The power of the Yin Qi and grudges here had reached a frightening level. Jian Chen and Tai Ta were both frowning. The 3rd zone is a little too terrifying. If Saint Rulers step into it, they'll probably pass away in just a few seconds from the energies present, Jian Chen gruffly said. The 3rd zone could be described as a killing ground for Saint Rulers. Even without vengeful spirits, Saint Rulers would not be able to survive for very long. Only Saint Kings can enter the 3rd zone, and they need to circulate their energy as hard as they can to repel the Yin Qi and grudges. This will lead to an extremely rapid exhaustion of energy, so we can't waste too much time in there, said Yu. We need to enter even if that's the case. We'll back out once we find the precise location of the Saint's fruit. Once it ripens, we'll go in and take it, said Jian Chen. Determination flowed from his eyes. He needed to go in no matter how great the dangers were. The Saint's fruit only appeared once every 40,000 years. It was the only shortcut to Saint Emperor, so he needed to obtain the Saint's fruit this time. The 3 of them entered the 3rd zone side by side. As soon as they set foot over the boundary, a bone-chilling iciness immediately invaded their bodies. At the same time, the grudges of the dead that were at least a dozen times more powerful than before wormed toward their souls. The energies were so powerful that they were comparable to the yin qi and grudges present within Gustis earlier. The three of them were prepared. They immediately began to circulate their energy, creating a barrier outside their bodies to obstruct the invasion. Strands of chaotic force surged from Jian Chen's chaotic Niden. It filled every corner of his body, using all the advantages that the chaotic body offered. At the same time, a layer of dark light moved about the surface of Jian Chen's body. This was chaotic force circulating around his skin. Tai Ta became enveloped by a blinding golden light. He seemed to have become a golden cocoon, where only a blurry figure of him could be seen from outside. He seemed like he was a god in descent, possessing a mighty appearance. A layer of extremely terrifying energy also pulsed on the surface of He Yu's body. All three of them pushed their energies to the maximum to protect themselves upon stepping foot into the third zone. Jian Chen, let out Rue Jin and Hong Lian. There should be quite a few Saint Emperor vengeful spirits here. We should increase the strength we possess, He Yu said to Jian Chen. Jian Chen nodded and immediately pulled out the Saint artifact. He let Rue Jin and Hong Lian out from the artifact space. The two of them had been warned by Jian Chen when they were still in the artifact space, so they knew about the current situation. As a result, they had made preparations before they emerged, using their various abilities to ward off the invading energies. Rue Jin was enveloped by a golden light as well, appearing like a second Tai Ta. The only difference was that the light from him seemed to be a little duller than Tai Ta's. A layer of scarlet flames coated Hong Lian, causing the surrounding temperature to quickly skyrocket. Her flames were an existence of supreme yang, so they just happened to suppress the yin qi and grudges of the dead. As soon as the flames appeared, the surrounding energies immediately moved away from her and dared not to get anywhere near her. Jian Chen, Tai Ta, He Yu, and Rue Jin immediately moved away from Hong Lian. Although the flames posed no harm to them, it was extremely uncomfortable to remain near such a terrifying temperature for long periods of time. Get a little closer to me. The energies around me are relatively thinner, so it'll decrease your energy consumption, Hong Lian said to them. With that, the four of them looked at each other and they could not help but smile wryly. Tai Ta said with his muffled voice, Senior Hong Lian, I can't get too close to you. Your flames bake me uncomfortably. They're too hot. The four of them remained where they were. Although Hong Lian's flames had already been reduced in strength under her control, the terrifying temperature was still not something they wanted to endure. It could not harm them, but it felt like torture. Hong Lian smiled. For her flames to be so powerful, her strength had obviously completely recovered. She was at the great perfection of Saint King once again. This was all because of the divine water of the world. It could completely cure the backlash from using the rebirth of flames. Rue Jin and Hong Lian appearance undoubtedly increased the strength of Jian Chen's party. Even if they became encircled by Saint Emperor vengeful spirits in the third zone, they would be able to deal with them calmly. Jian Chen had no idea where the saint's fruit grew. The sea goddess did not tell him the precise location, so he could only search for it in the third zone. The third zone was the homeland of vengeful spirits. There were many Saint Emperor vengeful spirits. Jian Chen's party came across over 10 of them as they moved around. Although they were not as powerful as Gustis, they could not be underestimated. Hong Lian dealt with them all. Her flames of supreme yang were the bane of existences that skewed toward yin. If Hong Lian dealt with the vengeful spirits, she would be even more effective than Rue Jin. In a vague sense, Hong Lian had become the main force of the party. Dangers and fortuitous encounters existed together in the death nest. There were even more bones and shrapnel of weaponry here. They had all been left behind by Saint Emperors in that age. They even found a few broken pieces of armor and space rings. It was a pity that many of the space rings had been completely destroyed already, so they could not be opened. HM? Jian Chen, this space ring doesn't seem to have been completely destroyed. Tai Ta ran over from nearby and happily passed an old space ring to Jian Chen. Jian Chen accepted the space ring and discovered that it was indeed still intact. He opened it in the end after much difficulty. It was a space ring worn by a Saint Emperor, so the wealth inside was extremely great. However, the energies present in the death nest had already invaded the interior, destroying many of the items in there by turning them to dust. Only a few items made from special materials remained. Suddenly, Jian Chen's face changed and he pulled out a 10-meter-long square tablet. Examining it carefully, he became delighted. This is a Saint-tier battle skill. Jian Chen called out. He was extremely excited, as if he had found some supreme treasure. With that, He Yu, Rui Jin, and Hong Lian all gathered over. They sighed emotionally. It really is a Saint-tier battle skill. You've already gained much with just this. There was an image of a human on the stone tablet. Only the back of a big man could be seen. He stood in the sky, above the clouds. He looked down on the world, like a lord. The stone tablet possessed nothing else other than this image. Its name was not known. The figure in the tablet seemed to be standing there casually, but he gave people a feeling that he had fused with the world. It possessed an odd presence, both vast and majestic. The figure was only a key to unlocking the Saint-tier battle skill. The true Saint-tier battle skill could be said to be hiding within the figure. It could also be said to be hiding within the stone tablet. Only after a person's mind had resonated with the tablet would they be brought to another world to comprehend the Saint-tier battle skill. Saint-tier battle skills were different from ordinary battle skills. Many Saint-tier battle skills were not recorded in books. Rather, they would carved into a stone tablet as a legacy. An energy that originated from the world would be hidden inside, allowing the tablet to exist for eternity and become almost indestructible. Jian Chen was extremely excited since he had obtained a Saint-tier battle skill. The Flame Mercenaries had already reached a certain scale in size now. They possessed many Heaven-tier cultivation methods and battle skills, and the only thing they lacked were Saint-tier battle skills. The Saint-tier battle skill right before him could make up for this aspect. Also, Jian Chen found a Saint-tier cultivation method within the space ring. It was recorded on the fur of a Class 9 magical beast. It had been reduced to a sorry state, but all the words recorded were still present. Unfortunately, there was nothing else in the space ring other than those two items. However, Jian Chen was extremely happy with his harvest even though that was the case. In the blink of an eye, Jian Chen and the others had already stayed in the depths for a whole day. They found a few more space rings during that time, but all of them were unfortunately useless. They had all broken. Hong Lian had already put out the flames around her. She now wore the clan treasure of the Phoenix clan. She used the origin energy armor to repel the invasion of the energies. He Yu and Rui Jin equipped similar armors as well. They no longer used their own energies to repel the invading yin qi and grudges. The three of them were all saving energy. There was no energy of the world within the death nest, only endless amounts of yin qi and the grudges of the dead. They could not replenish their used energy at all. Jian Chen and Tai Ta had also been persuaded by Rui Jin to enter the artifact space, but they both declined the offer. The energies they used were extraordinary, and consumptions like this were nothing to them. Chapter 1144. The Saint's Fruit appears. Jian Chen and the others had stayed in the very depths of the Death Cavern for 3 whole days. During that period of time, they always moved around and maintained an extremely low profile. They would avoid any vengeful spirits they could to save up strength for a final fight. Jian Chen and the others came across Gustis again during the 3 days. He ended up fighting with Hong Lian, but he was firmly suppressed by her flames. In the end, he was chased away by Hong Lian's Phoenix clan's treasure. Even though that was what happened, Rui Jin and the others all felt shocked by Gusti's strength. If they did not use their origin energy treasures, they would not be able to do anything to him. They would not even be his opponent. During those 3 days, they had traveled through half of the 3rd zone. Unfortunately, they did not come across any signs of the Saint's Fruit. They did, however, find a few space rings, but they had all been destroyed, so they obtained nothing. After making it past a hill, everyone in Jian Chen's party narrowed their eyes. They virtually gazed in the same direction at the same time. Within the churning black mist was the faint flickering of a multicolored light. It was extremely weak, but it was still eye-catching within the mist. All of their eyes shined with interest. They stared unblinkingly at the flickering light. This was the first time they had seen the existence of another light source ever since they had entered the death nest. Without any verbal signals or agreements, all of them walked toward the light. They were all filled with caution. As they approached the place, the flickering light became brighter and more blinding. In the end, they finally discovered what the multicolored light was. It was a small man-sized tree that stood there all alone. It glowed with a blinding 5-colored light that enveloped a radius of 1,000 meters. The Yin Qi and grudges of the dead could not approach this region. It almost seemed like this region was an independent space. The small tree had a total of 9 leaves. Each leaf radiated with a hazy light, and it was very beautiful. They all seemed like flowers, protecting a fist-sized fruit inside. The fruit was red in color, but it shined with a rainbow light. A profound presence hidden within the fruit could be vaguely sensed. It contained the truths of the world. The saint's fruit. This should be the saint's fruit. Jian Chen exclaimed. He was extremely excited. After so many twists and turns, he finally found the legendary saint's fruit in the death nest. What a wondrous fruit! It can actually grow in the death nest even though it is filled with vile energies, He Yu said in amazement. He found it rather unbelievable. The saint's fruit seemed to be filled with holiness. Logically, a fruit like that should have only appeared in a blessed land filled with spiritual energy, yet it grew in the gloomy death nest. This was indeed unbelievable, almost illogical. Mo Tianyun used the corpses of countless fallen experts from ancient times to build the death nest. He used his abilities to draw out the essence within these experts to create such a heaven-defying fruit. What a great approach, Rui Jin softly murmured. He felt complete admiration for Mo Tianyun. More accurately, the saint's fruit grows by absorbing the essence and essence blood of those experts. It's a fruit of supreme vileness, yet it just seems divine. It really does seem like a fruit of the saints. I understand now. Mo Tianyun really did possess great abilities. He actually forcefully transformed yin into yang by using a mysterious reversal of the infinite to transform evil into good. He used an absolute technique to transform the nature of the fruit, nullifying the evil energy within the saint's fruit, which was why the evil fruit became a true fruit of the saints. It possesses heaven-defying effects and can assist people in breaking through to Saint Emperor, Hong Lian said. She stared at the fruit as her face filled with shock. Rui Jin's eyes also turned golden. 2 streaks of light shot out as he gazed around the area. He was using a secret technique of the Dragon Clan. Did Mo Tianyun really do so much to create this zone of danger just to grow the saint's fruit? Rui Jin murmured. Flames began to dance in Hong Lian's eyes. She also used a secret technique of the Phoenix Clan to observe the surroundings. She gradually frowned. On the surface, it seems like the death nest was indeed created for the saint's fruit, but the death nest seems to serve a much greater use than that from my observations. He Yu and Jian Chen both frowned when they heard Hong Lian and Rui Jin. They had originally thought that the death nest existed for the saint's fruit, but only after hearing Rui Jin and Hong Lian speak did they understand that the death nest probably did not exist just for the saint's fruit. Why did Mo Tianyun create a place like this? What did he want to do, and what is the other use of the death nest? Rui Jin murmured. His eyes had stopped shining, but they now brimmed with interest. He was filled with an intense curiosity. Hong Lian also stopped using her secret technique. She said, Mo Tianyun really is worthy of being the most powerful human in the past. The secret techniques of my Phoenix Clan are not enough to see through the secrets of this place. There's another color on the saint's fruit. There's 6 colors now, Jian Chen suddenly said. Everyone focused their attention on the saint's fruit again. Indeed, they discovered that the 9 leaves now glowed with another color. They were 6-colored now while the fruit remained rainbow. The light from the fruit became more intense with an extra color now on the leaves. The area enveloped by the light expanded to 1,500 kilometers now as a special fragrance began to pervade the surroundings. A single breath of allowed Jian Chen and the others to gather focus while a comfortable feeling filled their souls. The fragrance of the saint's fruit drifted into the distance and actually drew over all the surrounding Saint Emperor vengeful spirits. Very soon, several demonic figures drifted over from afar, entering the region basking in the light. In the end, they stopped 100 meters from the fruit and sat down, beginning to meditate and cultivate. The light from the fruit could not harm the vengeful spirits. Instead, the spirits absorbed the fragrance of the fruit and became even more tangible. They benefited from it a lot. The fragrance of the fruit drifted very far away and drew over many vengeful spirits. Soon, more and more Saint Emperor spirits drifted over from all directions. The Saint Emperor vengeful spirits that gathered here increased. The expression of Jian Chen and the others became ugly. Now that so many vengeful spirits had gathered, It would undoubtedly make it much more difficult for them when the time arrived to collect the fruit. Let's retreat quickly to retain our strength. It's best if we don't end up fighting these vengeful spirits, Xueqi said to the others through a communication technique. They immediately began to silently retreat. However, 3 vengeful spirits appeared in front of them just after they had retreated a few dozen meters. They just happened to obstruct their path. Shit! Jian Chen's heart sank. The 5 of them had already been discovered by the 3 vengeful spirits, so they could no longer hide. Without saying anything, the 3 vengeful spirits attacked them. The disturbance was so great that the mist and energies within the death nest began to violently churn. Xueqi, He Yu, and Hong Lian went up to receive the attacks. They used all their origin energy treasures and attacked abruptly, wanting to deal with the 3 vengeful spirits quickly. The 3 spirits were not their opponents. Their bodies collapsed from the attacks several times very quickly. They could not use their strength to the fullest before the origin energy weapons. The 5 of them were not very far from the saint's fruit. Drawn over by the fragrance, almost all the vengeful spirits of the region had gathered there. The sounds of battle alerted the other vengeful spirits very quickly, including those that were meditating around the fruit. Immediately, all the vengeful spirits stood up and rushed toward Xueqi and the others. Chapter 1145. A bitter battle over 20 Saint Emperor vengeful spirits struck out at the same time, which greatly increased the pressure that Xueqi, He Yu, and Hong Lian were under. After all, they were not just facing a few vengeful spirits anymore. There were some that were extremely powerful, maybe not as strong as Gusty's, but they were not far off in terms of strength. As a result, even with their 3 origin energy treasures, the 3 of them fell to a slight disadvantage under the encirclement of over 20 vengeful spirits. Jian Chen and Tai Ta also used everything they had to keep a vengeful spirit busy each. They wished to reduce Xueqi, Hong Lian, and He Yu's burden, but they were nowhere near as strong as the 3 of them. Their strength was quite far from the great perfection of Saint King, so all they could do was circle about the vengeful spirit as they fought. More and more Saint Emperor vengeful spirits gathered because of the effects of the saint's fruit. All of them participated in the encirclement against the 5 of them, causing the pressure to increase by more and more. The Saint Emperor vengeful spirits handled by Jian Chen and Tai Ta increased from 1 to 2. Even when they used everything they had against a single vengeful spirits, all they could do was circle about with much difficulty. Now that another one had suddenly appeared, their situation immediately became disastrous. They quickly became injured. The golden light around Tai Ta had almost dispersed. The light darkened slightly and a strand of extremely pure yin qi invaded his body. It rapidly devoured his vitality and froze his body. Jian Chen also became injured. A streak of blood ran from the corner of his body. His chaotic Niden spat out strands of chaotic force to contend with the invading yin qi. His soul was also attacked by the grudges of the dead, leading to stabbing pain and great dizziness. These energies originated from the Saint Emperor vengeful spirits. Even though Jian Chen's soul was very strong, he could not resist this powerful energy. More and more vengeful spirits gathered, reaching 50 in number very quickly. Xueqi, Hong Lian, and He Yu became trapped in an encirclement. They became rather busy with handling the attacks from so many vengeful spirits, so they could no longer bother with Jian Chen and Tai Ta. However, they still tried to attract a few vengeful spirits over to reduce the pressure Jian Chen and Tai Ta were under. Enter the artifact space. Xueqi's voice boomed in the black mist of the vengeful spirits. Jian Chen hesitated. The Saint artifact was not extremely tough. An attack from Saint Kings at great perfection was the most it could withstand. Although the vengeful spirits were not as powerful as when they were alive, the strength they retained was still nothing to underestimate. Thus, he fell into a dilemma, debating on whether or not the Saint artifact could withstand the attacks of the vengeful spirits. Bang! With a muffled sound, a vengeful spirit silently appeared behind Jian Chen. It struck Jian Chen's back with a punch, sending him flying. This was the 3rd vengeful spirit Jian Chen had to handle. With his current strength, he could only hold off 1 Saint Emperor vengeful spirit at most. 2 was already his limit, and he would not be able to last for very long. He would be utterly doomed if a 3rd one appeared. Jian Chen vomited a mouthful of blood. He flew uncontrollably for several hundred meters before falling to the ground after striking a few large trees. At the same time, Tai Ta was knocked flying with his battle axe and flickering golden light. He just happened to land near Jian Chen. The light on his body had dulled and his face was pale. A trail of golden blood ran from the corner of his lips. Jian Chen, these vengeful spirits are just too powerful. We can't defeat them, so we better leave here quick, Tai Ta said. He was extremely stern. Up ahead, for Saint Emperor vengeful spirits quickly approached the two of them. The other two spirits had transformed into dense yin qi and grudges, quickly drifting over as well. Let's go! Jian Chen yelled. He grabbed Tai Ta as he quickly fled to the outskirts. However, before he could even travel 100 meters, the two of them came across another two vengeful spirits that were hurrying over to the fruit. The two of them began to attack Jian Chen and Tai Ta without any hesitation, blocking their path. Kept busy, the 6 other vengeful spirits managed to catch up. 8 Saint Emperor vengeful spirits now attacked them at the same time. Jian Chen and Tai Ta had basically nowhere to run now. They were encircled by the vengeful spirits and could not flee. Tai Ta, don't resist. Let's enter the artifact space. Jian Chen yelled. With that, a blinding golden light suddenly appeared. A 10-meter-tall golden tower appeared out of nowhere, and the two of them were sucked away as soon as it emerged. The 8 vengeful spirits immediately turned their attention to the tower now that Jian Chen and Tai Ta had disappeared. 2 of them rapidly swung their fists at the artifact while 4 other spirits shot out strands of evil energy as streaks of black light. The final 2 spirits transformed into dense, dark mist, enveloping the saint artifact and eating away at it with their pure vile energies. Under the control of the artifact spirit, the tower shrank to the size of a fist. It moved left and right in attempt to break free from the encirclement. However, the artifact was only an auxiliary treasure. It possessed a powerful interior but weak exterior, so its powers outside were extremely limited. Other than being extraordinarily tough, the artifact had no other advantages. It was trapped tightly between the 8 vengeful spirits, unable to flee at all. It was knocked around many times. The artifact space felt the violent attacks too. The entire world inside violently shook, causing the ground to quake. The countless magical beasts that lived there were alarmed. Great dark clouds had already started to appear in the hazy white sky of the space. They shrouded the sky and enveloped the entire world. This was the invading vile energies. Jian Chen and Tai Ta stared at the dark clouds with rather pale faces from the central hall of the artifact space. They were grim and filled with worry. The Saint Artifact was their final line of defense. If even the Saint Artifact was not enough to resist them, it would be completely useless even if he brought out the Divine Hall of the Bloodsword sect as well. This was because the Saint Artifact's toughness was greater than many Divine Halls. Probably only the Bright Moon Divine Hall was tougher than it. Chapter 1146. In danger, Artifact Spirit, what's the situation outside? Can you endure the attacks from the vengeful spirits? Jian Chen asked. Master, the vengeful spirits outside are extremely powerful. There is also the invasion of extremely powerful yin qi and the grudges of the dead. I can resist it, but not for long. The artifact spirit's figure appeared stern. He had already fused with the artifact, using all the energy that the artifact possessed to resist the vile energies. If you can't break free from the encirclement, get as close to Rue Jin and the others as possible. Get them to leave the death nest with the artifact, Jian Chen heavily said. His complexion was very bad. The dangers of the death nest had far exceeded his expectations. He never thought that he would still be in so much danger even with Rue Jin and the other two. The Saint Artifact followed his orders and immediately began to move toward Rue Jin and the others. However, the situation was still horrible. The artifact was sent flying time and time after again by the vengeful spirits, unable to approach Rue Jin and the others. Also, the 2 vengeful spirits that had turned into dense mist plagued the Saint Artifact. The pure energies constantly gnawed away at the Saint Artifact. On the other side, Rue Jin, He Yu, and Hong Lian were encircled by the many vengeful spirits as well. The battle that occurred could be described as devastating. If it were not for the fact that the death nest was surrounded by a large formation, probably the entire region would have collapsed and shattered. The Saint Emperor vengeful spirits that encircled Rue Jin, He Yu, and Hong Lian had now increased to over 80. The area became filled with vile energies with so many vengeful spirits in one region. It seemed to become a domain of ghosts, and the vengeful spirits were only rapidly increasing. If it was any other day, it would have been impossible for so many vengeful spirits to gather here, but it just happened to be the moment before the saint's fruit fully ripened. The vengeful spirits possessed a fatal attraction to the fragrance of the fruit, so almost all the Saint Emperor vengeful spirits of the third zone had been drawn over. The three of them all possessed origin energy treasures that protected both their bodies and their souls, allowing them to resist the vile energies. This was why they were still alive even after being trapped in a heavy encirclement. If any other experts fell into a similar situation, all they could do was desperately run. Even true Saint Emperors would not be exceptions. However, it was difficult for the three of them to escape now that they had been surrounded by so many vengeful spirits. Honglian, help me create a path. I'll go fetch the Saint artifact. The situation there doesn't seem great, Ruijin called out. The golden light from the tower had dimmed after resisting the attacks, and the physical shape had even become a little deformed. The situation within the artifact space was even worse. The white, hazy sky had now turned to darkness. This was the first night the artifact space had experienced in over 1,000,000 years. All the Class 7 magical beasts that lived in there looked at the sky in horror, as if it was the end of the world. The artifact spirit was already using everything he had. He used the energy within the entire space to resist the invasion of the vile energies. The two were locked in an endurance battle, seeing who could last longer. The origin energy of Radiant Saint Force is the bane of these vile energies. It can purify them, but it's a pity that the vile energies are equivalent to Class 9 in strength. My origin energy is only Class 8, lamented the artifact spirit. His voice was filled with an unwillingness to give in. He was the natural enemy of these vile energies, yet he was suppressed. It was extremely saddening. Although the Saint artifact was equivalent to a Saint Emperor in the artifact space, that was only a regular Saint Emperor. He was nowhere near Saint Emperors who stood at the apex. Coupled with the fact that the invading energies came from two Saint Emperor vengeful spirits and the brutal attacks from multiple vengeful spirits outside, he was forced into a horrible situation. Ruijin made it in time. The sacred dragon's sword glowed bright. With a shocking might, he swung out several times and collapsed the vengeful spirits who were attacking the Saint artifact. Afterward, he quickly charged into the black mist created by the two vengeful spirits and rescued the Saint artifact from danger. As soon as he had gotten a hold of the Saint artifact, the vengeful spirits around him condensed again. They all charged at him, and in the distance, the several dozen vengeful spirits that had encircled him earlier rushed over as well. They all surrounded him once more. In the distance, several huge demonic figures appeared. They were all 10 meters tall and surrounded by surging vile energies. One of them was Gustis. The other vengeful spirits around him were very powerful. They were not on Gustis' level but not too far away either. They were all berserkers of the 100 races like Gustis. They were extremely powerful. Chapter 1147. Hiding into a Miniature World. 1. Suddenly, Gustis and the towering vengeful spirits beside him moved out. They charged toward Ruijin as black blurs, raising their fists to strike him. The attacks were swift and sharp. Each fist was heavy, enough to collapse whole mountains and rivers. Ruijin placed the Saint artifact under his armor and used the origin energy in his armor to create a barrier around him, warding off the invasion of the vile energies. Afterward, he poured all his power into fighting off the vengeful spirits. If Ruijin was fighting them one-on-one, none of the vengeful spirits were his opponent. Even if several of them worked together, they would not be able to fight Ruijin. However, there were 20 to 30 of them right now. There was just far too many, making it rather difficult for Ruijin to withstand the blows. Ruijin's pressure increased abruptly when Gustis and the others joined in. Without fighting for very long, a few beams of black light condensed from vile energies struck Ruijin's body. The powerful force sent Ruijin backward, forming 2 deep canals in the ground due to his feet. Before Ruijin could even stabilize himself, Gustis had silently caught up. He hurled a fist with lightning-like speed at Ruijin's chest. As his punch traveled through the air, the surrounding space trembled violently. The vile energies that filled the surroundings gathered wildly, making the punch become much stronger. Bang! With a loud sound, Jin was blown back by Gusty's punch. He flew 1,000 meters before finally landing beside Hong Lian. Hong Lian remained in her phoenix form. She flapped her wings constantly, dousing the region with a sea of fire. The figures of countless vengeful spirits flickered within the pure white flames. Even though the fire was super effective against them, they didn't fear death, so they continued to charge into the sea of flames. Densely packed attacks were launched at Hong Lian in a blanketing fashion, but they were all blocked by her feather mail. Jin stood up. Although he seemed like he was in an extremely horrible condition, he was uninjured. Saint Emperors would struggle to bypass the defense of the Origin energy armors. The three of them could fight Saint Emperors without suffering defeat exactly because of this piece of armor. More and more vengeful spirits have come here, and they possess a huge advantage here. Once all of our energy is depleted, we won't be able to replenish it. We can't continue to fight with them like this anymore, or it'll be very horrible for us, Jin commented with a heavy voice. His armor shined with a hazy light, protecting him from the flames. However, the terrifying temperature was still very uncomfortable. There are over 100 vengeful spirits here now. It's virtually become an impenetrable prison for us. Even if we use the Origin energy treasures, it'll be very hard to break free, the Phoenix grimly replied in human tongue. An idea flashed through Jin's eyes. He said, Hong Lian, I might have an idea. We need to charge over and reunite with Heiyu right now. And then, the two of you will block the vengeful spirits together to make time for me. I'll cast a supreme secret technique of the Dragon Clan and create a miniature world. We can hide in there and break free from these vengeful spirits. Jin, are you certain that it'll work? Hong Lian asked. This is a supreme secret technique of the Dragon Clan. Even in ancient times, it belonged to the very peak. There shouldn't be a problem if I use it to break free from these vengeful spirits. Also, the situation's already like this. We can try it even if it doesn't work, said Jin. Hong Lian stared at Jin for a while, before working with him to deal with all the vengeful spirits that obstructed their way. They approached where Heiyu was. Around a dozen vengeful spirits collapsed from their weapons, but they recondensed very quickly. They continued to charge at the two of them without any fear. At the same time, Gusties and his berserkers struck out at the same time, which made it difficult for the two of them to advance. They were attacked from every direction, and whenever they advanced a little, the powerful attacks from the vengeful spirits would land on them. It was not enough to injure them, but the powerful force caused them to back up involuntarily. Jin and Hong Lian finally made it to Heiyu's side after a tremendous amount of effort. The three of them had gathered together once again after being separated by all the vengeful spirits. I'll use a supreme secret technique of the Dragon Clan. You two cover me, Jin called out before putting away the sacred dragon's sword. He began to shine with a dazzling gold light as densely packed dragon scales appeared all over him. They covered every inch of his body, including his face. Jin formed seals with his hands and spoke in incomprehensible and unfathomable ancient dragon tongue. It sounded like a chant as it spread through the surroundings with a mysterious energy. Golden lines of inscriptions floated out from Jin's scales, gathering before him. World of Feathers. Transform. 9 refined Godfire Feathermail. Hong Lian also cried out. She raised her head to the sky and produced a long phoenix's cry. The armor on her separated at that moment, turning into red feathers which filled her surroundings. Every single feather was several dozen meters long and burned with scorching white flames. Origin energy circulated within them, allowing them to possess a weird presence. The countless feathers formed a huge cage, enveloping a radius of 100 meters. It kept the vengeful spirits outside. All these feathers were fate feathers. Each member of the Phoenix clan only had a single fate feather, so they had all been left behind by ancestors that had passed away. Every feather belonged to a Class 9 Divine Phoenix, so they possessed unfathomable power. The feather mail was already extremely powerful since it had been created from all the fate feathers of past ancestors. Coupled with its mutation into an Origin energy treasure, its quality was raised to another level. Thus, Saint Emperors could not break through. As a result, Hong Lian's huge cage of feathers could actually keep the attacks of the vengeful spirits at bay temporarily. Booms constantly rang out as countless vengeful spirits dwelled in the flames, enduring the consequences of being weakened to attack the feathers. They all lacked any self-awareness, so they did not understand pain, let alone death. This was why every single one of them was so bold. The huge cage began to tremble violently under the attacks from so many vengeful spirits. If it were not a treasure with origin energy, it probably would have shattered long ago. After all, it was resisting attacks from over 100 Saint Emperors, not just one or two. If it was any other divine hall resisting the attacks instead, it probably would have shattered instantly. Hong Lian hovered in the sky. She opened her wings and an endless amount of white flames shot out. They shot unceasingly into the cage of feathers. She was using everything she had right now to keep drive the force of the origin energy treasure. He Yu grimly stood beside Hong Lian. He looked around with his sharp gaze, covering Hong Lian with all his attention. Now that all the vengeful spirits had been blocked outside by Hong Lian and her armor, He Yu had lost his opponent. There was nothing he could do right now. Although he was also in possession of origin energy treasure, he was different from Hong Lian, unable to use them in such miraculous ways. Hong Lian and Rui Jin's origin energy treasures were all legacy items of their clans. They also possessed records of the ways to use the treasures along with secret techniques. He Yu lacked this wealth in knowledge. Rui Jin's secret technique had already approached the end. Lines of golden inscriptions constantly emerged from his scales, gathering before his chest. The space around him began to pulse in an unstable fashion. The shield from the feathers began to tremble more and more. The area it covered had already shrunk to a radius of 50 meters from the initial 100, and it also showed signs of collapsing. Hong Lian trembled violently. It was extremely strenuous for her to block so many attacks from vengeful spirits just by herself. It's a pity I'm only at the peak of Class 8. I can't use all the strength within the 9 refined Godfire feather mail. If I was at Class 9 and used the World of Feathers, the vengeful spirits would struggle to break through the shield even if there were twice as many of them outside. Hong Lian endured the difficult task. She was filled with an unwillingness to give in. It was not because her secret technique was too weak, nor was it because the origin energy treasure was not strong enough. Instead, it was because she was not powerful enough. Chapter 1148. Hiding into a Miniature World, 2. Hong Lian, you have to endure it. Rui Jin's secret technique is almost complete. He Yu encouraged Hong Lian. He also felt rather worried inside, but there was nothing he could do. He was just a mutated divine alligator. He possessed the battle prowess of beasts of antiquity, but he lacked a bloodline legacy, so he obviously did not possess any inherited secret techniques. Hong Lian began to tremble more and more. She could not last much longer. The vengeful spirits outside attacking the barrier of feathers increased, reaching 150. At the same time, many more vengeful spirits could be seen in the distance, all having been drawn over by the saint's fruit. However, all the vengeful spirits that hurried over discovered the same situation without any exceptions. They all took part in attacking Hong Lian and the others. It was an instinctive impulse. Boom! With a great rumble, a feather was blown away. A gap immediately appeared in the world of feathers and Gustis appeared there with the other huge vengeful spirits. They allowed the endless white flames to scorch them. With a flash, He Yu had disappeared from beside Hong Lian. He immediately went to plug the gap, becoming embroiled in a great battle with Gustis and the others. He used everything he had to keep them out. At this moment, another boom rang out. A second feather was blown away, creating a second gap in the world of feathers. Hong Lian produced a phoenix's cry and controlled the scorching Godfire hairpin with her mind. It flew over with scorching flames, blocking the gap. The pressure they faced now was only increasing. Not only did maintaining the secret technique drastically deplete Hong Lian's energy, the vengeful spirits outside were also rapidly increasing. Not much later, a third boom rang out. Another feather was blown away and a third gap appeared. He Yu and Hong Lian both looked extremely ugly. They were already using everything they had right now. They had nothing to guard the third gap. But, at this moment, the Golden Saint artifact flew away from Rui Jin. It glowed with a golden light and Jian Chen and Tai Ta silently appeared. Without stopping at all, they immediately charged to the third gap to fill it together. Jian Chen pushed his chaotic body to the limits, and Tai Ta was surrounded by a dense layer of golden light. They did this to resist the terrifying waves of heat from all directions. The two of them were completely fine now. Their wounds from before had been healed by the Saint artifact, and they had returned to peak condition. However, it was still extremely difficult for the two of them to block one gap. They became injured again very soon. In a few seconds, a fourth gap appeared in the wall of feathers. A few vengeful spirits immediately rushed in and charged toward Hong Lian and Rue Jin. The hairpin which plugged the first gap flew back as a streak of white light. It passed through the vengeful spirits with lightning-like speed, causing them to collapse. However, they condensed once again the next moment. With the departure of the origin energy artifact, the first gap immediately became wide open. Vengeful spirits began to charge in from outside. Jian Chen, Tai Ta, Hong Lian, and He Yu's expressions all changed, but at this moment, a dazzling light illuminated the surroundings, turning the death nest into a golden world. The surrounding space violently shook as spatial force rocketed around, impacting the entire region. The miniature world is complete. Everyone enter quickly. At the same time, Rue Jin's voice rang out. A 3-meter-tall gate stood before him, shining with blinding golden light. It was impossible to see what was inside. Jian Chen, Tai Ta, and He Yu all rejoiced, as if they had seen a strand of hope in utter despair. They all abandoned their enemies and charged toward the golden gate as fast as they could. Hong Lian also reverted to human form. She was pale white right now and exhaustion filled her face. She entered the golden gate with a flash. The countless feathers that had formed the world of feathers immediately collapsed with a wave of her hand, turning into red feathers that shot toward her. They reassembled into a complete piece of armor on her body. All the vengeful spirits immediately gushed in now that the obstruction was gone. They all charged toward the golden gate, but just as they approached it, the gate suddenly vanished. Bang! 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 With several consecutive sounds, all the vengeful spirits collided with one another. Two of them were even smashed to pieces and reduced to black mist, but they instantly reformed once again. Now that the golden gate had vanished, the death nest had recovered its usual peace. The vengeful spirits all quickly calmed down after losing their targets. They did not continue to fight and instead, behaved like nothing had happened at all. They slowly made their way to the saint's fruit before all sitting down near the fruit to meditate. They absorbed the fragrance of the fruit to consolidate their form. Here was a golden world. It was desolate and barren as far as the eye could see, without any signs of life. Rue Jin, Hong Lian, He Yu, Jian Chen, and Tai Ta all sat on the ground there. They seemed rather tired, Hong Lian in particular. Her beautiful face was dyed white while Jian Chen and Tai Ta's situations were not fantastic either. They were heavily injured again and right after they had recovered. We finally broke free from those troublesome things. Rue Jin, won't those bloody spirits find us if we hide in here? He Yu sighed a deep breath of relief, but he was rather worried at the same time. Rue Jin shook his head. This is a miniature world created from a supreme secret technique of my dragon clan. Chapter 1149. The Saint's Fruit Ripens. Rue Jin stared at the vengeful spirits with mixed emotions. He heavily said, "The ancient times were a prosperous era. There were definitely more saint emperors in that age than right now, and the vengeful spirits we see right now are only the ones who have fallen in war. I believe there's a huge portion of corpses that Mo Tianyun did not get his hands on." Jian Chen silently nodded. He knew that Rue Jin and Hong Lian's understanding in regard to the situation of the ancient times was no less than the protector clans since they possessed their inherited memories. There's so many vengeful spirits outside right now. Once the fruit ripens, how should we go retrieve it? And how should we leave after we do retrieve it? Hong Lian frowned. All of them fell silent with that. They all began to think of methods to flee, as there were just too many vengeful spirits outside. Once they became surrounded, it would be difficult to break free even for Rue Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu. They could only protect themselves temporarily, and once all of their energy had been consumed, they would fall into great anger as well. The death nest seems to be a whole different world. Space cannot be ripped open, so we can't leave using a space gate, said He Yu. Tai Ta glanced past the four of them. Slightly hesitating, he said, "I might have a way out." With that, all of them looked to Tai Ta. They dared not to underestimate Tai Ta since he possessed the memories of the war god. Tai Ta, what method do you have to break free from the encirclement of the vengeful spirits? Jian Chen immediately asked. Tai Ta scratched his head. He said with a muffled voice, I have the mysteries of war. I can break through the limitations of space and move through the void. I can go wherever I want to go, so after careful consideration, I should be able to leave here. But when I use the mysteries of war, I'm the only one who can leave. I can't bring anyone with me, but if you all enter the Saint Artifact, I should be able to leave with the Saint Artifact. The Death Nest is virtually a whole different world. It's different from outside. Are you sure your mysteries of war can successfully be used here? Tai Ta scratched his head heavily. Only after some thought did he say with some uncertainty, My mysteries of war seem to be very powerful. They can break through the limitations of space anywhere, so there should be no problems. Since you're uncertain, we definitely can't rely on it. If we become encircled again, we probably won't even have time to construct a miniature world. After all, there are more vengeful spirits outside than before, Hong Lian expressionlessly replied. It doesn't matter if it'll be successful or not. It's a chance at least. We can still get Tai Ta to try if we really run out of options. Though, for the sake of safety, we should make some more preparations. Hong Lian, it'll be up to us to create supreme killing formations now, Ruijin said. Hong Lian slightly frowned. She said, My Phoenix clan has 3 great killing formations. They could slay saint emperors in ancient times. I have the method of casting them in my inherited memories, but it needs just far too many materials. Where would we find these materials? Ruijin looked at Jian Chen. He said, Jian Chen, you've obtained quite a few space rings from experts over the past few years. I think there should at least be a few materials that can be used for formations. Jian Chen pulled out a space ring without any hesitation. He said, I've stored all the space rings I've recently obtained in there. I hope there are some useful items in it. With that, Jian Chen passed it to Ruijin. The space ring contained several dozen other space rings, and it was everything he had obtained over the past few years. He had checked through all the items in there, passing on a few valuable items to the flame mercenaries. The remaining items were just a mixed assortment. There were even many objects that he had no idea what they were used for. Ruijin and Hong Lian immediately began to check through the items inside. It took them 2 whole days before they could sort through everything, and they really found quite a few materials for formations. The various items had been stacked into a small mountain behind them. These materials are enough for us to cast killing formations. However, as we lack a few crucial materials, we can only replace them with other ones. This will work, but the formations won't be in their most powerful form, Ruijin murmured to himself as he stared at the mountainous pile of items behind him. Afterward, Ruijin and Hong Lian both went into seclusion. They took the huge pile of materials to create formations. As they possessed inherited memories, they understood every single step of the process extremely well. Jian Chen, Tai Ta, and He Yu had nothing to do. They spent the next period of time paying attention to the situation outside using the mirror Ruijin had conjured, watching to ensure that they learned of any unexpected changes. Very soon, a month passed. Ruijin and Hong Lian had spent the entire time constructing their formations. Afterward, they joined Jian Chen and the others in watching the situation outside, silently waiting for the saint's fruit to ripen. Unknowingly, the 5 of them had already spent 3 months in the miniature world. Ruijin basically needed to replenish the world's energy once every month in order to maintain the world. Now, the saint's fruit had already increased from 7 colors to 8. The 9 leaves had also increased to 7 colors, and the light around it became even more dazzling. The area it enveloped increased once again as well. All of them knew that the saint's fruit was even closer to ripening when they saw this. It had already entered a crucial stage. Another 2 months went by very quickly. The saint's fruit now possessed 9 colors, purging the vile energies with its light. A paradise had appeared in the death nest, as if it was where immortals dwelled. Another month passed and the 9 leaves gained another color. As soon as they were 8-colored, an extremely bright light suddenly erupted. The 9 leaves and the fruit seemed to have become a miniature sun. They emitted a blinding light, illuminating the surroundings and enveloping the entire death nest with dreamlike colors. Vast strands of presences rapidly surged into the saint's fruit from the 9 leaves. At the same time, Vast quantities of essence surged from the scarlet ground of the death nest, all gushing into the small tree. A layer of thick clouds silently formed above the saint's fruit. The clouds were at a very low altitude and radiated with a tremendous presence. An invisible pressure permeated the surroundings, causing the atmosphere to become suffocating. The entire region was affected, causing an odd presence to flood the area. The spatial force and world force in the death nest was affected, beginning to pulse in an unstable fashion. This formation must have been cast down by Mo Tianyun. He intends to use it to assist the saint's fruit with surviving the tribulation. He made the appropriate arrangements back then, Ruijin murmured as he stared at the formation in the sky. Boom! A second bolt of lightning shot down in a deafening fashion, targeting the saint's fruit again. However, it was blocked by the same formation just like before. It left behind a mysterious energy before silently vanishing. This mysterious energy was then poured into the saint's fruit. The mysterious energy originated from the supreme mysteries of the world. After absorbing the energy of the tribulation, the saint's fruit began to shine more and more. The energy hidden inside also became more and more powerful. It was rapidly growing and ripening under the assistance of the tribulation. As bolts of lightning constantly fell, the fruit absorbed more and more mysteries of the world. At that moment, it seemed to have become the sun. It shined with a blinding 9-colored light, turning the death nest into a dreamlike world. The 9-colored light was not limited to the death nest either. The light broke through the formation around the place, expanding into the outside world. It enveloped the region and even made the sun in the sky lose its glamour. The supreme mysteries of the world violently pulsed. They spread through the void, almost across the entire continent. At that moment, all the saint kings on the Tianyuan continent could feel the powerful pulsing of the mysteries of the world, which made all of them lose their composure. In the independent space that belonged to the Pure Heart Pavilion on the Tianyuan continent, the pavilion master, Wu Chenzi, currently sat with a white-clothed, burly middle-aged man in a room. Chongyang-hu, so many years have passed. Are you still unable to let go? If you can't sever your attachments with mortal affairs, how will you reach the utmost peak of great liberation? Chongyang-hu, the mortal world is like a dream. You have only been living in dream before. You should now break free from this dream, the pavilion master sincerely spoke. She was filled with helplessness. Chongyang-hu's gaze became rather lost, but it cleared up soon. He gently shook his head. No, the mortal world is not a dream. It is reality. I haven't been living in a dream before. I've been living in reality. Pavilion master, it's really difficult for me if you want to sever all attachments of mortal affairs and abandon kinship and friendship. Sigh. The pavilion master deeply exhaled. Just as she wanted to say something, her expression drastically changed. Her ordinary gaze immediately sharpened. She seemed to be able to see through space, to a distant area. She cried out, "What powerful pulsing of the mysteries of the world! This completely exceeds the great perfection of Saint King. Has another Saint Emperor appeared on the Tianyuan continent? Who is he?" The birth of a Saint Emperor mattered very much to the Tianyuan continent, so even the pavilion master struggled to remain calm with her mental fortitude. However, Wu Chenzi calmed down again. Surprise filled her eyes as she murmured, "It's actually not the birth of a Saint Emperor. Has the saint's fruit that has been recorded to only appear once every 40,000 years in the death nest emerged once again? Looks like a giant struggle is going to break out between the 10 protector clans again." Chapter 1151. A struggle between the strong. 1. Every time the saint's fruit appears, a saint king will be able to reach Saint Emperor. Now that the saint's fruit has appeared, it looks like another Saint Emperor will appear on the Tianyuan continent. That's a blessing for the continent, Wu Chenzi murmured to herself before turning to Chongyang-hu. She said, "Have some time to yourself for the next few days. I really do hope you can sever all mortal affairs and break free from the chains." With that, the pavilion master walked outside. A struggle filled Chongyang-hu's eyes, but it would be replaced by confusion from time to time. He seemed to have no idea what he should do, becoming lost. He could not find the path he needed to walk. Suddenly, Chang Yonghu looked toward Wu Chenzi, who was just about to leave through the door. He said, "Pavilion Master, I want to visit home." Chang Yonghu, are you still worrying about the matters at your home? The Pavilion Master stopped and said without turning back. It's already been many years since I've last returned. I have no idea what the situation there is like right now, as well as my younger brother and sister situation. A rare sliver of reminiscence filled Chang Yonghu's eyes. Your worries are unnecessary. The Changyang clan is currently as brilliant as the noon sun, and your younger brother has already become an expert that can shake the continent, the Pavilion Master gently sighed. But I still want to go back. I want to see my mother, said Chang Yonghu. After a momentary pause, the Pavilion Master said, Go back. Return back to the mortal world and comprehend it. It might help you. Chang Yonghu immediately set off from the Pure Heart Pavilion. The Pavilion Master did not directly send Chang Yonghu to the Changyang clan through a space gate. She instead got him to travel by himself. She made him travel the huge distance to return back to the Jessen kingdom by himself. Just as Chang Yonghu left, an ordinary-looking middle-aged man arrived before the Pavilion Master. He clasped his hands, Pavilion Master. The Jessen kingdom is very far away from here. Chang Yonghu will definitely come across some difficulties along the way. Wu Xian, protect him in secret. Only interfere when his life is threatened, commanded the Pavilion Master. Yes, Pavilion Master. Wu Xian suddenly disappeared with a sway of his body. He shot off in the direction that Chang Yonghu had set off in with extremely great speed. The Pavilion Master returned to an extremely simple discussion hall. It had been filled with people long ago. They were all important figures of the pavilion. Pavilion Master, the saint's fruit that only appears once every 40,000 years has ripened. How should we respond? Do we take part in the fight for it? A gray-haired old man stood up and asked the Pavilion Master. Wu Chenzi sat on an extremely old cushion. She calmly said, We practice the Pure Heart Sutra of the Pure Heart Pavilion. We have to purify our heart from passions and desires, so that we do not become entranced by foreign objects. We have never participated in the fight for the saint's fruit every single time it has appeared. At most, a few seniors went with some experts to study the mysteries of the death nest, so we will not be participating either this time. At the same time, a huge blade floated 3 meters above the ground in the forbidden grounds of the Tyrant's Blade School. It shined with a layer of brilliant light. A burly, middle-aged man in robes sat on the hilt of the blade. Strands of extremely pure energy leaked out of the blade, which were then absorbed by the middle-aged man like a whale taking in water. He was the founding ancestor of the Tyrant's Blade School, Gue Hai Yi Dao. He was currently cultivating by absorbing the energy within the Emperor armament. Over 100 Emperor armaments had fused with the blade already. The energy gathered in there had reached an extremely terrifying level where even Saint Kings at great perfection found it difficult to control. They would suffer extremely severe backlashes as well. However, as the original owner of the Emperor armament, Gue Hai Yi Dao could use the weapon like a third arm even though he was not at great perfection. He would not suffer any backlashes. Suddenly, Gue Hai Yi Dao's eyes snapped opened. 2 streaks of terrifying light shot from his eyes, piercing through empty space, shattering it. The light reduced it into chaos, and soon after, images of the death nest appeared clearly. The space distorted constantly, making it very difficult to make out the feature there. However, a bright, 9-colored light appeared. What is this? Gue Hai Yi Dao's face changed. He struggled to keep his composure, and only after quite a while did he sigh in amazement. What a powerful formation and what heaven-defying methods. Who was the one responsible for this? Several figures flew over with lightning speed from the distance. Gue Hai Yi Dao returned to how he was before, and the space in front of him had recovered as well. The people were the great elders of the Tyrant's Blade School. They knelt down politely outside the forbidden grounds and one of them courteously reported, Ancestor, the saint's fruit that appears once every 40,000 years has ripened. May we have permission to proceed to the Death Cavern and retrieve the saint's fruit so the ancestor can return to Saint Emperor? The saint's fruit? What's that? Gue Hai Yi Dao became rather interested. He did not originate from the same age as Mo Tianyun, and he had only just returned to the Protector clan. He was obviously uncertain about what had happened in the past with Mo Tianyun. The great elders explained all the information regarding the saint's fruit in detail. However, when Xueqi Dao heard that the fruit could allow people to reach Saint Emperor, he did not show any hint of joy at all. He remained extremely calm and said, "I have no need for the saint's fruit, but it might be rather useful for you. You can go." The great elders beamed with joy. With what was said, they could tell that their ancestor did not need the saint's fruit to reach Saint Emperor, which obviously made them extremely excited and joyous. The great elders all left the tyrant's blade school. With their departure, Xueqi Dao left the forbidden grounds as well. He entered the library there, diligently reading through the records regarding Mo Tianyun and the Death Nest. At the same time, experts left the Chongyang clan, the Moyuan clan, the Yangji sect, the Shenshao sect, the Patian sect, the Yuan sect, the Heaven's Incense School and the Heartless School. They directly ripped open space gates to travel to the Death Nest. Other than them, the supreme experts of Mercenary City were mobilized as well. There was not just Tianjian who was at the great perfection of Saint King. There were also the elderly people who had remained in seclusion and had only appeared during the invasion of the 100 Races. They were approaching the end of their lives and wanted to use their final moments to obtain the saint's fruit and break through to Saint Emperor. A few ancient clans with lengthy legacies and a deep heritage possessed records of the saint's fruit as well. All the saint kings in their clans were mobilized as well. At that moment, the Death Nest became the center of attention for all the saint kings on the Tianyuan continent. This was because the powerful rippling of the mysteries of the world could undoubtedly allow people to reach Saint Emperor. Even a few saint kings who had no idea of the fruit's existence ripped open space gates and hurried over, wanting to understand just what was going on. Chapter 1152. A struggle between the strong two. The only remaining saint king of the Tsar family stood in a large courtyard as he stared into the distance within the city of God. Tsar Vaimo's face was filled with both doubt and surprise. Has someone on the Tianyuan continent broken through to Saint Emperor? No, that doesn't seem right. These mysteries of the world seem to be due to the birth of a Saint Emperor, but they are completely different from the records, Tsar Vaimo softly muttered. He seemed to think of something and his face changed abruptly. He cried out, "I remember now. It's the saint's fruit. This is the saint's fruit that is recorded to only appear once every 40,000 years. It said that the fruit can allow a saint king to reach Saint Emperor." Tsar Vaimo's breathing suddenly became ragged. At this current date, it was very difficult to reach Saint Emperor. Many people were stuck at great perfection for their whole lives, unable to advance, which was why becoming a Saint Emperor was extremely tempting to all saint kings. It was enough for all the supreme experts who stood at the apex of the continent to fight with one another, until they were all bloodied and battered. But the next moment, Tsar Vaimo's face darkened. He became filled with sorrow and helplessness. He deeply sighed. It's a pity that Kaiyun. Otherwise, my Tsar family might have been able to try get the saint's fruit. Sigh, I sure do regret the past. I was wrong back then. At the same time, the Saint King ancestors of the Kara clan and Kazda clan all came out of seclusion in the other two capital cities of the Holy Empire. They looked in the direction of the Death Nest with glowing eyes and left hurriedly after handing over some matters. Simultaneously, Saint Kings departed from the Karl Empire and Felicity Empire as well, all heading toward the Death Nest. The Death Nest was located in an extremely desolate region where people would rarely appeared, yet it had become lively today, something that rarely occurred. As space gates ripped open, Saint Kings hurried over from all directions. At that moment, over 2/3 of all the Saint Kings on the Tianyuan continent had gathered outside the Death Nest. Only an extremely low number of people did not participate. Right now, the entire Death Nest was enveloped by a magnificent, 9-colored light. It dyed the surroundings with many colors as thunder boomed in the sky. The tribulation lighting fell bolt after bolt. The commotion was huge. The vast pressure caused many Saint Kings to change their expressions. What's happening? Why has this happened in the Death Nest? Has someone been cultivating in the Death Nest and reached Saint Emperor? Many Saint Kings discussed the matter with one another. All of them were curious. Only a few clans that possessed an ancient heritage and knew about the saint's fruit remained silent. They did not want to leak the secret of the fruit. Half a day later, the tribulation lightning in the sky dispersed. The saint's fruit had successfully made it through the tribulation with the help of the formation in the Death Nest, and it had absorbed a large quantity of pure energy from the lightning. It completed its final evolution and became the real thing. The saint's fruit had become simple now. Its multicolored light had completely disappeared, and all of its energy and vast amounts of essence had completely withdrawn. None of it leaked out, and it had returned to its simple form. Even the 9 leaves around it were the same. At the same time, some of the Saint Kings outside the Death Nest began to move. The first people were the 10 Protector clans and a few ancient clans. They had charged into the Death Nest at almost the same time. They knew the secret in the depths of the Death Nest. Their ancestors had already probed into the matter regarding the saint's fruit many times, around a dozen. Their records described it very clearly, so everyone knew that right now was the perfect time to collect the fruit. Immediately, over 100 Saint Kings entered the Death Nest. With the people of the 10 Protector clans leading them, they flew to the depths with an unstoppable force. They did not bother with the vengeful spirits that they came across along the way. Any powerful vengeful spirit that blocked their way would be struck with several, or even a dozen combined attacks from Saint Kings. They would collapse into mist in a single instance. There must be some heaven-defying treasure in the Death Nest. Let's all go in and take a look. That's right. Otherwise, how could it attract the people of the 10 Protector clans? The Death Nest may be terrifying, but if so many Saint Kings like us work together, we can easily trample through this place. Many people revealed their thoughts outside the Death Nest. They had all realized something from the movements of the Protector and ancient clans, so they all charged in as well. The Death Nest was terrifying with its extremely powerful Saint Emperor vengeful spirits, but basically 2/3 of the Tian Yuan continent's supreme power had gathered here. Even if they came across Saint Emperor vengeful spirits, they could disperse them easily, which was why every single person was filled with confidence. The Saint Kings had entered the Death Nest in 2 waves. The people of the first wave moved very quickly. They could almost be described as swift as the wind, using only 2 hours to reach the second zone of the Death Nest. They continued on without slowing down at all, proceeding to the third zone. All the wonders of the saint's fruit had already disappeared. It no longer radiated with any fragrances, but the Saint Emperor vengeful spirits did not disperse. They remained there like before, meditating. The vengeful spirits had benefited a ton after absorbing the fragrance of the saint's fruit. Their bodies were now even more consolidated. In the golden miniature world, Jian Chen, Tai Ta, Rui Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu sat on the ground as they stared unblinkingly through the mirror. They were all waiting for the moment the vengeful spirits would leave. At this moment, the group of Saint Kings that had entered the second zone were obstructed by over 10 vengeful spirits. Although they had wiped out the vengeful spirits in the blink of an eye, the powerful ripples of energy reached the third zone. A gleam of light flashed through Rui Jin's eyes in the miniature world. He seemed to sense something and immediately cut open his finger. With a drop of his blood, he cast a secret technique to create another mirror in the air. The blurriness of the mirror cleared up very quickly. A group of human experts who glowed with various colors appeared in the mirror, quickly flying toward the third zone. Shit, it's the people of the Protector clans. They've come to the Death Nest as well. Jian Chen had seen the people of the Protector clans before, so he recognized them with a single glance. His face immediately became ugly. Chapter 1153. A struggle between the strong. 3. The Protector clans have arrived sooner than I expected. The ripening of the saint's fruit caused too large of a disturbance. I just never thought they'd actually come so quickly, said Rui Jin. What do we do now? Do we get the people of the Protector clans to fight with those vengeful spirits and get them to attract their attention? And once they obtain the saint's fruit, we steal it over in a crucial moment? Hong Lian inquired. All of them contemplated the situation. Stealing the saint's fruit from a group of vengeful spirits or a great party of Saint Kings would both be difficult. In terms of battle prowess, the Saint Kings that had charged in from outside were nowhere near as strong as the Saint Emperor vengeful spirits. However, they could work together, and there were many of them who knew Saint tier battle skills and various ancient secret techniques. They were not easy to deal with either. Rui Jin glanced at Jian Chen. He said, "Let's not steal the saint's fruit from the hands of the 10 Protector clans. That might lead to a lot of people panicking and doing some impulsive things. After all, the saint's fruit is no ordinary item. It's the only shortcut to Saint Emperor, so is there anybody willing to let it be stolen from them?" Jian Chen nodded slightly with that. Rue Jin was looking out for Jian Chen with what he suggested. Jian Chen was not just a single person. He needed to consider the people around him. The Chongyang clan in Lore City, the Jessen Kingdom, and the Flame Mercenaries could not endure abuse from the Protector clans and the Ancient clans. Although these large organizations were usually disinclined to do things like that, the Saint's fruit that could let people reach Saint Emperor was involved this time. The great temptation could easily drive people mad. Time was tight right now. They began to move as soon as they came up with a plan. A gate opened in the Golden World and Jian Chen, Rue Jin, He Yu, and Hong Lian all flew out. They flew over the heads of many vengeful spirits, quickly charging toward the Saint's fruit. Tai Ta did not come out. In order to protect his identity, he was persuaded into the artifact space by Jian Chen within the miniature world. Their appearance immediately garnered the attention of all the vengeful spirits present. At that moment, all of them stopped meditating and stood up in unison. Without saying anything, they all charged at the four of them. Jian Chen, Rue Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu had made preparations long ago. Chaotic force filled every corner of Jian Chen's body, pushing the defenses of his chaotic body to the limit. As for the three others, they had drawn their origin energy treasures, ready to attack and defend. A devastating streak of light flickered by. Chapter 1154. A struggle between the strong, 4. The Saint Kings from the Protector and Ancient clans immediately charged in the direction the battle had erupted. Almost all the vengeful spirits in the third zone of the Death Nest had gathered around the Saint's fruit, so there were very few vengeful spirits elsewhere. This allowed the party of Saint Kings to travel without problems. There was not a single vengeful spirit that blocked their way until they reached the edge of the battle. However, all of them became dumbfounded when they arrived. They all stared in front in astoundment as they experienced a great shock. In front of them, over 500 Saint Emperor vengeful spirits formed a black mass. They surged toward a location in a blanketing fashion, and all of them used various powerful attacks. The attacks drowned the area, causing the ground to rumble. Dazzling, golden sword chi would shoot out from the encirclement of countless vengeful spirits from time to time. There would also be white flames between the spirits, radiating with a terrifying temperature. However, it was impossible to see the people trapped in the encirclement. Only a Saint Emperor can block the attacks from so many Saint Emperor vengeful spirits, but we only have a single human Saint Emperor, and it's clearly not him, so who are they? Are they the Saint Emperors from the Beast God continent? No, they're not Saint Emperors from the Beast God continent. Their presences are completely off. Does that mean that there's more than a single Saint Emperor on our continent? The people from the Protector clans and the Ancient clans were all greatly shocked. In the current age, there were extremely few Saint Emperors. Even with the entire world in perspective, there was a countable amount of them, yet 2 Saint Emperors had just suddenly appeared here. This was an extremely astounding piece of news. Suddenly, an extremely terrifying ripple of energy erupted. All that could be seen was a huge glimmering sword chi, a dazzling blade of light, and a burning 3-meter-long hairpin break from the encirclement together. Wherever they passed, the vengeful spirits would collapse into dark mist. They had dispersed over 20 vengeful spirits instantly. A gap appeared in the encirclement of the vengeful spirits, and Rue Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu immediately charged out. They continued to approach the Saint's fruit, growing closer and closer. It's them! It's actually the dragon and the other magical beast that fought against the Path Lord of Carnal Desires and the Saint Emperors from the Beast God continent. Many people immediately recognized them, and they all spoke at once. They possess origin energy weapons that can injure Saint Emperors and origin energy armors that make it difficulty for Saint Emperors to harm them. They also own a wondrous bead that protects their soul. They're relying on these 3 treasures, which is why they can survive the encirclement of so many vengeful spirits, a Saint King from an ancient clan said in envy. If I had those 3 treasures, I could kill a path through the vengeful spirits as well, some people thought inside. They struggled to hide their envy. The Saint's fruit. That's the Saint's fruit. Suddenly, someone cried out from the crowd and everyone glanced over immediately. They discovered an ordinary little tree standing all by itself on the scarlet ground. It had 9 leaves, and between the leaves hung a fist-sized fruit. It no longer glowed since it had returned to how it was before. It was simple, just like an ordinary piece of fruit. All the people gathered here originated from ancient organizations. The saint's fruit was recorded in great detail in the books at their clans, so they recognized it as soon as they saw it. All of their gazes began to burn with an urge. An extremely powerful desire to own it was ignited at the bottom of their hearts. The current world made it very difficult to reach Saint Emperor, while the fruit was the only shortcut to become a Saint Emperor. No one could resist such a great temptation. At this moment, no one paid any more attention to Xueqi and the 2 others. The saint's fruit had drawn all of their attention, and the next moment, all the saint kings, regardless whether or not they were from the protector clans or the ancient clans, all charged toward the fruit as fast as they could with their eyes green with envy. Their movements immediately alerted a portion of the vengeful spirits around Xueqi and the others. Close to 200 vengeful spirits immediately broke from the group, blocking the saint kings as black streaks of light. The 2 sides immediately began to fight, erupting into an intense battle. Over 100 human saint kings ferociously clashed with over 200 saint emperor vengeful spirits. All the saint kings wanted to break free from the vengeful spirits as soon as possible to retrieve the saint's fruit, so they used everything they had. Various powerful saint tier battle skills and ancient secret techniques were used unceasingly. Tremendous energy ripples shook up the surroundings, almost destroying everything. Storms of energy whistled around, causing the mist in the death nest to churn. The 2 sides were actually locked in a stalemate. The vengeful spirits were extremely powerful when they were still alive, but their strength had decreased now. At the same time, the human experts knew powerful saint tier battle skills and ancient secret techniques. In a one-on-one situation, the saint kings could rival the vengeful spirits, unless a powerful existence like Gustis appeared. The pressure Xueqi, Honglian, and Heiyu were under immediately decreased. They let out a breath of relief inside and secretly thanked the 10 protector clans. They thanked them for reducing the pressure they were under. At this moment, another group flew over from behind. They were the saint kings of the second wave. They did not possess ancient legacies, so they had no idea about the saint's fruit. However, since they could become saint kings, they were all intelligent people. They all knew that there was something inside that even the 10 protector clans would drool over. There's a small tree over there and there's a fruit on it. It's definitely an extremely valuable heavenly resource, the second group of people exclaimed when they saw the saint's fruit. The hearts of the people from the first wave sank. Shortly after the second group arrived, all of them in the first group quickly retreated, drawing the vengeful spirits back with them as they retreated to the second group. They pulled them into the battle as well. The vengeful spirits were no longer their opponent with the addition of the second group. They were suppressed by the joint attacks of the Saint Kings and many of the spirits collapsed. Over 200 more vengeful spirits broke away from the encirclement around Xueqi and the others. They aggressively surged toward the group of Saint Kings. With this, the vengeful spirits around the 3 of them immediately dropped to under 200. This allowed the 3 of them to rejoice. With their strength, they paved a path and quickly approached the fruit. The saint's fruit is a treasure of us humans. Don't you dare take it, you outsiders. Yongzi discovered what Xueqi and the others were doing, and he immediately fell into a rage. He roared out and immediately abandoned the vengeful spirits he was fighting. He charged toward the 3 of them with a few other experts of the protector clans in an attempt to stop them. You overestimate yourselves if you want to stop me, Honglian coldly said in disdain. A great stream of burning white flames immediately shot from her hairpin, enveloping Yongzi and the others. Yongzi's face changed, and he immediately dodged. However, a Saint King at the 8th heavenly layer was a little too slow. The flames swept past his lower half and his legs began to burn. His flesh was burned to ash, but the terrifying white flames did not stop just there. Instead, it quickly spread to his upper half through his legs. Ugh! The person shrieked out miserably. His lower half was disappearing bit by bit. The white flames contained unbelievable power. They could not be put out at all. This was the fire that came from the origin energy weapon. It was countless times stronger than what Honglian could control herself. Swish! With a flash, a Saint King firmly struck out. He split his companion in half along the waist, which prevented the terrifying outcome of the flames spreading to his upper body. What terrifying flames! This stunned many Saint Kings. Many of them became fearful of the flames. How can you foreigners lay your hands on a sacred item of the humans? At this very moment, an ancient voice boomed out from the battle between the Saint Kings and vengeful spirits. Four ruddy old men sat in the middle of the air as wisps of mist enshrouded them. They seemed like immortals. More than 10 Saint Kings covered them, blocking the attacks from the vengeful spirits. It's the people of the Xueqi sect. Looks like they're about to cast God's heavenly thunder. It's rumored that God's heavenly thunder is the supreme technique of the Xueqi sect. It can draw in the heavenly thunder that resides above the 9 heavens. A saint emperor was struck by it once, and he died on the spot. He was burned to a crisp. A few saint kings from ancient clans could not help but cry out. Chapter 1155. A struggle between the strong. 5. At this moment, the 4 great elders from the Xueqi sect became the center of attention. Many human experts watched them from the corner of their eyes as they fought with the vengeful spirits. The legendary god's heavenly thunder from the Xueqi sect was a powerful secret technique that had already approached the limits of the saint tier and even exceeded other saint tier battle skills. It had reached a whole different domain that was even more profound. The secret technique had rarely been used through history since using it was exhausting and would bring about a powerful backlash. It was almost a forbidden technique, but once it was used, the power could be described as devastating. The 4 great elders sat together in the air. They all formed seals with their hands as the wisps of mist around them surged into the sky. They used the mist to resonate with the world and summon a mysterious and powerful energy from beyond the heavens. Crack! Suddenly, a deafening boom exploded. A huge bolt of lightning descended from the sky, falling toward Hong Lian with unbelievable speed. There were no dark clouds. It was a bolt from the blue. The sound of thunder filled the air and reverberated across the sky. The bolt of lightning glowed with extremely bright light, illuminating the surroundings. At that moment, the bolt of lightning seemed to have become the only thing in the world. Its blinding light made the sun darken. Hong Lian raised her head toward the sky. A stern light flashed through her eyes as she murmured, "Quite some trick, but it's still not enough to injure me." She had already been locked on by the lightning, so she could not dodge. All she could do was receive it head-on. White flames roared around the scorching godfire hairpin before it was thrown into the air by Hong Lian. Immediately, it morphed into a 10-meter-long hairpin from its original size, turning into a white streak of light as it shot toward the god's heavenly thunder with an unstoppable force. Boom! The hairpin collided with the bolt of lightning and an extremely clear boom erupted. Terrifying waves of sound caused the ground to gently tremble. Many saint kings were deafened. The bolt of lightning had actually been shattered. The huge bolt of lightning had been smashed into countless smaller sparks that shot in all directions by the hairpin, so it seemed like the blooming of a beautiful flower in the sky. It actually created a rather special scene. What a powerful origin energy weapon. It actually destroyed the Xueqi sect's absolute technique without any difficulty. The saint kings that saw this broke into a hubbub. Many of them even revealed greed in their gazes. They had become interested in such a powerful origin energy artifact. If they obtained it, they would be invincible below Saint Emperors, and they would have the abilities to contend against Saint Emperors as well. The 4 great elders of the Xueqi sect all became rather ugly. Some paleness appeared on their faces. They remained silent, clenching their teeth to summon more bolts of lightning. Hong Lian did not give them the chance to continue. Roaring flames enveloped her as she shot toward the 4 of them with lightning-like speed, like the descent of a fire goddess. The saint kings that covered the 4 great elders all stepped forward. They sternly stared at Hong Lian and immediately struck out with a palm. Immediately, surging energy erupted toward Hong Lian with a great force. The scorching godfire hairpin immediately spat out a stream of terrifying white flames. The fire seemed to be able to melt everything in the world, and the energy sent out from over 10 saint kings was actually burned to a crisp by the fire. The flames had even spread along a sliver of their presence, tainting their arms. Their limbs immediately began to burn as their flesh slowly turned to ash. The saint kings all grunted. They could not put out the flames, so they all made a ruthless decision. They all severed their arms, which stopped the fire from spreading. Their severed arms were instantly burned to a crisp. There was no one obstructing Hong Lian now. They all feared the white flame since once it got to them, they would lose a layer of skin even if they didn't die. Hong Lian aggressively continued toward the four great elders. Their expressions drastically changed. Without bothering with anything else, they used their final secret techniques to escape. With a wave of her hand, the scorching godfire hairpin immediately trembled. 4 finger-sized sparks flew out, shooting toward the four great elders with lightning-like speed. Afterward, she collapsed 2 vengeful spirits that floated over in the surroundings using the hairpin again. Among the 4 great elders, one of them used a vengeful spirit beside him to block the spark. Another one was struck in the leg while the 2 others were struck in the chest. The white flames immediately began to flare up, burning from their chests and quickly spreading in all directions. The 3 great elders all wailed out painfully. One of them severed his leg without any hesitation while the heads of the other 2 exploded. They abandoned their bodies and their souls flew out. They quickly traveled toward the uninjured great elder before being sucked away into a gourd. Vast pressures descended from the sky. They brutally tried to crush Hong Lian, almost as if an invisible mountain was descending. Around a dozen Saint Kings in the surroundings had all begun to use Saint-tier battle skills, targeting Hong Lian. Some were from protector clans while the others were ancestors of ancient clans. Hong Lian produced a clear phoenix's cry that was sent to the sky. The flames around her surged 10 meters high as several flame pillars as thick as an arm shot in all directions like scattered flowers. To no surprise, they targeted the Saint Kings who were using Saint-tier battle skills. If one observed carefully, it was not difficult to see that every single pillar of fire contained a long, fire-red feather. The flames all originated from the feathers. The situation had completely developed into a battle between 3 parties. One side included Rue Jin, He Yu, and Hong Lian. Another side included several hundred vengeful spirits, and the final side was the human Saint Kings. Hong Lian took on the attacks from many Saint Kings and vengeful spirits all by herself. She attracted the attention of all the Saint Kings. Many people from the protector clans and the ancient clans began to fight against Hong Lian. They feared her flames very much, but that did not mean they were afraid. The great elders from the Chongyang clan became uncertain. They knew the connection between Jian Chen and Rue Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu, so they were hesitating about treating them as enemies or not. They could not allow outsiders to take the saint's fruit since it belonged to humans. At this moment, Rue Jin and He Yu finally approached the saint's fruit under the encirclement of so many vengeful spirits. The saint artifact hidden in Rue Jin's bosom immediately flew out, and with a golden flash, Jian Chen silently appeared. He used the illusory flash and arrived before the saint's fruit in a single motion. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.